Welcome to Forging Flame. This is the podcast where we sit down with artists, creators, entrepreneurs of all types, talk about their creative processes, their motivations, inspirations, hopes, dreams, fears, and anything else that happens to come up during the course of conversation. I, of course, am Nick Hinton.
And I am Ryan Selleck.
And today we are here with Dyke Michaels and Kris King.
Hello.
Of the Harder Brunch podcast.
I think you jumped in way too early.
No.
Oh, that was
It's funny, like everything.
There are no rules here, guys.
Everything you've done so far is as if you've never done a podcast before. I feel like after that huge list of really cool professions he's talking to, he's like, we couldn't find any of those guys, so we found these two homeless people who took the wrong door to get into the house. And unfortunately, it's all going to go downhill from there on this episode.
Well, don't sell yourselves short, fellas. I for one happen to look up to you both in a manner of speaking. You guys around the time COVID started, you launched your show, right?
I started the show a year ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
Where have I been?
So I started it a year ago this past weekend.
Yeah.
And then Kris came on around Thanksgiving. And then I deleted everything that I had made before Kris came.
Yeah, that's how good I was. I think that you thought that it didn't happen before COVID because it wasn't good until then. I think that was right. Probably COVID is when I decided let's get microphones
Right before, yeah.
instead of recording in that tinfoil in a microwave.
Yeah.
That's what we were using before.
So it was a lot of trial and error before we started.
Yeah.
My whole thing was like, I'm not tech savvy, so I wanted everything to be able to done myself from my house. And I still can do that, but like I just need people to show me
Yeah.
what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Yeah.
But originally, it was just a cell phone in the middle of a table,
Right.
in an empty room with no furniture in it.
And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There's actually a lot of Radio Lab episodes that were recorded with an iPhone, which is surprising to me. But like that's one of the best podcasts out there in terms of sound quality, and yet they're not opposed to using a.
I mean, the iPhone is fantastic, and like the movie Tangerine, they recorded that entire movie on an iPhone. The iPhone can do amazing things. His iPhone cannot. But we says he like, I just want to do it. I want to do it from my house. I want to be able to just do it and then go take a nap. That's what you said. And it's been a pushback. Like when I was talking about the mics and mixing and all the different stuff, it was a little bit of a push to say like, I don't want to do that because I want to make it like I just record on a phone and that's the niche. But I feel like you've come around a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like when I go back and listen to even now, what's the first episode, which was not the original first episode.
Right.
I'm like, oh, that sounds like we recorded it in a tin can.
It all sounds like you can tell it's bad. Bad sound is always because you hear so much noise before there's actually noise. Like the white noise of it starts. It's like, and then it's us coming on. It feels like we're in a bug zapper that has yet to zap us. That's what we're recording over the entire time.
Yeah, those cell phone mics are almost a little too good at times. You know?
But sound quality aside, I had another podcast before this. That was the Red Flag Comedy Podcast that we did for a while. And that was really, we outsourced the whole thing. So like people were kind of hornswoggling us for prices and stuff. Like we got caught up with this whole, there was this building downtown. This guy reached out and he was like right there on Market Street. And they had this podcast studio. It's probably still there. If you go by, there's different shows. They have a TV. They have it looks like a legit setup. And it was just like a couple of grifters. It was just like a couple dudes with heroin problems. And they were just trying to get people in there. And then we found out that the whole reason there was a podcast studio is because the guy that owned the building, his son just wanted to do it as a side project. And like one day we just show up and there's this younger dude there and he's like, what are you guys doing in my studio? And I'm like, who are you? He's like, this is my studio. And I was like, oh, we'd been talking to these grifters and we thought everything was cool. And he was like, well, you're dealing with me now. And I was like, man, you look a little young. And I remember because we brought beers in for even that.
Sure.
And I gave him a beer one time. He was like, I'm in high school.
But then you proceeded to record the podcast though, even after he said he was in high school.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, we already paid money up front.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. You're really good at putting good money after bad. It's like, listen, I've already made the mistake. I'm going to continue that. I'm going to see how far I get. Maybe if I go so far down this dark hole, it'll probably come out the other side.
It always does. Look at us now. We're on another podcast.
Local podcasting royalty.
No, that's not true at all. That's not true at all.
No, you guys are actually you are our second set of podcasters that we've had on the show.
I apologize.
Yeah.
The first of which was Drink Culture, right after they decided to call it quits.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So
That's interesting. I've never heard Drink Culture, but I was talking to some friends of mine that were asking about our podcast, and they specifically said, is it like Drink Culture? And I said, I have no idea. Probably not.
Not even remotely close. No, definitely not. But I'm thankful to have some podcast guests who are also podcasters and are actively still doing it, especially because, we're all still somewhat, new-ish to the realm, to the medium, as it were.
Yeah.
And was that your junk kit?
Yeah, he decided to open his peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the middle of the podcast.
Hell yeah.
No,
A little
those are
hard to
they're
brunch
stickers.
swag.
Who's the guy that does our designs for our logos?
Ross Schaefer is the guy that does all of our design stuff. He's amazing. He's based out of Irvington.
Fantastic.
I will just have an idea in my head and I'll be like, hey, can you do this? And then what he gives me is always like 10 times better than what I had imagined.
He's great.
No, that's fantastic. So this is the new logo?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Nice.
like the cover on Spotify. And then, he did a lot of work for Red Flag. Like, he did a lot of the logos and posters for Red Flag. And then, we're going to work on, obviously we're still working on possible swag down the line and like shirts and all the different stuff.
Sure.
We're only going to go to that guy. He's fantastic.
Yeah. Attaboy, Ross. Nice work.
Shout out Ross.
Yeah. Well,
What's his last name again?
Schaefer?
Ross Schaefer. Yeah,
Yeah.
this
Maybe
looks
I'll-
great, man.
we'll
No,
write
it's
it,
good.
write a note, and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll remember to like post a link or something into.
Yeah, no, he's really, really good and definitely deserves all the work that comes his way. But speaking of guests that you've had on, so it's funny, I was looking at the guests you've had previously. You guys had Mike G.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
had Mike G on. So we talked to Mike G. I hit him up on Instagram because I'm a huge fan. I've been following him forever. I love what he's done. I especially like because I followed him really early on, and he's just what he's progressed. And I told him that. I said, hey, man, big fan. Would love to get you on this podcast we have. Here's the link. You should take a listen. And he took about 24 hours to respond. I'm assuming listening to our podcast. And he said, thanks for being a fan. Then he did not do the podcast. So I'm like, oh, these guys got Mike G. They did it.
Good timing, I guess. I
I
don't know.
we exist somewhere in the middle of being like, oh, these guys are like really funny podcasters, or like these guys are just ass clowns.
Yeah, that was it. It definitely depends on the episode you listen to, because if he dropped in the middle of one of those microwave episodes, he's like, no, these guys are recording in a bug zapper. I'm not gonna go in and do that.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like too, we kind of like take it to the level of the guest. So it's like sometimes we'll have someone in, it's kind of a square guest, and it does kind of. We've had episodes where it kind of turns into like a job interview. Sometimes
Sure.
where it's like, and where did you work next? Interesting. Okay, and where did you? And like we're trying to take it to a funny place, but like they don't seem to be on board with that. So we just try to keep it chill. And then sometimes we just have comics or we have friends on. So like we don't need to do introductions. We're already comfortable with each other.
Yep.
And then like it's like we'll be 45 minutes into it, and Chris is like, "Do you want to ask them some questions?" And we're like, "No, we've just been riffing, having
In
a
the
good time."
podcast, it's like 2 hours in. Like, did we ask them anything at all? And there's definitely times where Dyke and I are having such a good time that I forget. Like, the guest is there, and like, so what do you think about it, Ted? And then nothing, and then nothing from Ted, because we've been talking the entire time. But yeah, it's a really good time. Also, I also want to make sure, coming on another podcast, I don't know any of the people that we bring on 90% of the time. Like,
Yeah.
Dyke just knows that podcast wouldn't exist if it weren't for Dyke's resources, just everybody he knows. And the fact that, we had, the people that we get on, we had Brunch on.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't know who he was either. and then I went to his Twitter. I'm like, oh, this guy's actually hilarious. And of course, just huge.
Legit.
And yeah, he just came on. He just did it. Super nice guy. Hilarious. But it's all just, I don't understand how he knows it, but just the fact that we're able to bring in the guests that we're bringing in is absolutely all just because Dyke just knows so many people.
Yeah, keep the good guests coming, because I'm milking your guest list for. I'm trying to I figure 5 weeks or so is a good enough.
I would assume if I was in your shoes, I'd be like, listen, it's gonna do those homeless guy giving out sandwiches show. They'll definitely do mine. We got Mike G. If we had to get Mike G, they'll definitely do our podcast.
I'll tell you, the cheat code is comics. Like, it's hard for it's a comedy podcast about the service industry. So like me trying to get like chefs and people on, and like top tier bartenders, like sometimes it's a lot more difficult to get to book those guests. but comics know that they're going to get a free meal and then they can plug their stuff and they're just scratching. And I'm like, look, we do 52 of these a year. Like, we'll get you on.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's much harder to book like professional people
Right.
too. Plus they have a lot more to lose. Like comics, like, let me come on. I don't care. I'll
they'll push it.
make a fart
Yeah,
joke.
that's the thing is like, what do servers have to lose? We just getting like regular servers because I thought a good idea would you get to be somebody who's like bartending now in the middle of COVID, weeks ago, and that was really hard because they're just worried about doing it. Comics definitely don't care. Like, are you guys giving out for those free sandwiches? Yes, I will be there for the free sandwiches.
And it's my understanding that you guys have actually experienced some guests have a little bit of conflict or abrasion as a result of being on your show.
A couple of times, yeah. We've had a couple. We had a guy at the beginning who said some things about his place of business that he worked at, and he was very proud. He was very excited because at the end he did a plug for it, but he forgot everything he said at the beginning of the podcast.
He did say he did like mid podcast. He's like, I want to tell you the story about when I was sexually assaulted. And then he said, hey, come to this restaurant. It's a great place to go. Like, I don't think you heard what you just said, man. That was, he was such a good sport about it though. Cause we had him on again and he was very careful to not mention where he worked, but he was we give him a hard time because it happened almost immediately after that podcast. And that was actually my first podcast that was my first episode as a host. So I ripped him up for a good 6 months because I was new. I didn't have a lot to talk about. So like this is the thing that happened to me. But he was a really good, really good sport about it. But yeah, he definitely lost his job. Well, he lost his job. He lost his job not because of the podcast. He did all that and then decided to close early. And I think they found him sleeping on the couch in the back or something like that.
He was put on thin ice because of our podcast, and then he pushed himself over.
Yeah. We got him real close to that edge. He jumped
Sounds to me like a subconscious sabotaging of his own career path.
Well, he was very excited about the business. The thing is, we definitely were not popular enough that the manager would have found us on our own. He definitely said, you should listen to this. And mid podcast, I'm sure she never got past the point where he said, and then I was sexually assaulted by this woman, and then never ever differentiated between where he worked and where he kept promoting and wouldn't shut up about versus the place that he was sexually assaulted. I know that they were different places because I said, hey, man, did you get sexually assaulted at your current business? Because that's going to be kind of weird. And he said, oh, no, never thought about maybe I should delete that.
Did we mention that he gave the podcast to his boss?
That's what I was going to say.
So the boss would have never have heard this episode. And then recently we had a guest on. It was like a normal podcast that I thought was pretty innocuous, and then somebody didn't like it. Was like on the culinary side. I'm always expecting all the drama to come from like the comedy side,
sure,
but it was like somebody didn't like the guest we had on the culinary side, and it was like chef versus chef, and like they obviously had some beef that had nothing to do with us,
right.
And like somebody was like, why are you giving him a platform? And I was just like, well,
did somebody say that to you?
No, but it was like the gist of it was like. It was like, don't go on podcasts and talk shit. And I was like, we're the podcast they're talking about.
Yeah, it was great.
And then in the thread, other people are reposting this. And I was just like, I went to bed. I think I went to bed and I looked at our count and we were like, our numbers were like a little high for the week. And then I went to sleep and I woke up and they were like 3 times what they normally are.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this controversy is probably okay.
I don't know if that person that posted that knew how the internet worked. It seemed like maybe he did. It was great for us. But yeah. And the only time they definitely didn't have the beef with us specifically. It didn't seem like it was just the guest that we had on. But some people did listen to the podcast, and the feedback we got was barf. That was referred to as barf. And then someone else referred to us as high school gigglers.
Which is true.
Absolute fact. Absolute fact. We'll take that all day.
A lot of giggling on our podcast.
Absolutely.
Definitely a lot of poop jokes.
That we were full of machismo, and I was like, if you look at us in real life, you can tell there's no machismo.
That was the best. I mean, especially because I think that's the one thing of all this stuff that happened. That's where I was like, I didn't understand how that happens. There's no way we have machismo. We just, especially coming from where it was coming from. But we're definitely, I know we do this thing with our producer, Zach, who is definitely the most interesting person that we refuse to mic up. But we even though his own life story is phenomenal. I mean, he's been to the Sybaris twice. We always like make up his backstory because he can't talk. So at the time we were talking about him being like pro men or something because we're trying to move away from being racist, Zach. So if somebody listened to that, I could see it. But otherwise, it's Zach who's sitting there drinking a pink drink and me debating with someone who didn't ask to be debated about which is the better 90s Batman. It's like stuff like that. Like that's the majority of the podcast.
Not a lot of excess testosterone.
No, there really isn't. It's most. I remember when we were very early in the podcast when Kobe Bryant died, and I was blown away. But the machismo and the super athletic, sporty guys that everybody else was, I said, "Can you believe this happened?" And Dyke said, "Oh man." Anyway, so next episode, I think we should do. We just didn't. We're just not those people.
Oh, yeah. R.I.P. I didn't realize that was a cultural time to genuflect. I was like, oh man, that's sad.
Yeah,
I bet the Buffalo Bills are going to be really impacted by this terrible loss.
They're not going to get as many home runs next year.
No. Hockey will never be the same.
You just got to look where the puck is going, man. And, wow. I don't even know what to say about that.
Well, there's a lot of, as far as machismo goes too, there's definitely a lot of early podcasts. You know, I was thinking about that last week. There was a lot of early podcasts where it seemed like you'd never spoken to a woman before. Because we did have an early episode where Dyke had said to me, directing to me, being new, and I'm like the co-host, he's like, the thing about women is that we don't have to be afraid because we can kill them. And he asked me to buy it. I'm like, no, I do not know that, sir. I don't know that at all.
He did not yes and that at all.
No. It was. I guess that was my bad that I didn't say yes. I guess we can kill women.
I think that was taken slightly out of context.
Yeah, especially by the woman who was by herself with a bunch of men who had just broken her leg. I think she could not have run away. And what you meant to say was women should live, men are more the aggressors and women are not, and women have had a history of having to be fearful of men where we haven't. But you said it, you didn't really articulate it that way. You just said, it's, how it's like, because anytime you see a woman, you could probably kill her. Which honestly, I think speaking of machismo, I think the girl in that room could have kicked both of our asses, honestly, even with the one leg.
What also didn't help, right when I started having guests over, I had an ex-roommate move out. So everything in the house was his. So it just looked like I was squatting in the house. And so, you come over to a house and it's like, you want to eat some breakfast?
Yeah.
And do a podcast. And there's just plastic wrap on a table in the back for some reason. It's like, what's going on here? And then we put the podcast stuff on. I'm like, I could easily kill all women.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Second podcast, hey, eat these chips I just made. By the way, I look at women and I know that I can kill them. Like, stop saying things. That's the whole point of the podcast. Stop saying things. But yeah, he did the roommate move out. So we were what Dyke had lovingly referred to as a flop house podcast, where it was literally just, this is a lovely set. You guys are this, but it's imagine this with just this table, none of the cool stuff. And then that's the entire house. There was no furniture. There was no other roommate. There was nothing on the wall. There was no curtains on the window. I did see that you took one of the moving blankets to put up to make a curtain.
Yeah, we made a whole theater in there.
No, it's... Yeah, you have that giant TV that I have yet to see that TV on. He does have...
I watched Hereditary yesterday on it.
On that TV?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Was it... Where'd you sit?
Just in the room.
So
one of the chairs.
The couch, to watch a movie in that couch is an L shape. We
moved everything around. We blocked out every bit of sun. We were watching a movie at 2:30 in the afternoon. It looked like a movie theater.
Yeah. Well, except for the quality of the picture. But where'd you put the couch in front of the entryway?
Yeah, we turned it a little bit.
Okay, because it's just majority of the time the couch is this way, sort of adjacent to the TV, the way you have it here. But the TV's closer. It's enormous, so it's like you're watching Hereditary, but just looking over there.
I didn't know how big. I didn't have a TV for the last 10 years. My ex-girlfriend had a TV. My ex-roommate had a TV. For the past year and a half, I watched everything on my cell phone. So then I got a TV and I was like, oh, this is great. And then my friend was like, hey, I have another TV. Do you want it? And I was like, I already have one TV. Why would I need two?
Yeah.
And he was like,
Back to the Future.
He was like, well, it's free. I'll bring it over. And I was like, cool. He's like, I was like, how big is it? He goes, 72 inches. And I was like, no. I had no concept of what that meant. And then his son brought this drive-in movie theater screen into my house, and I was just like, "What? This is the whole room? Like, I don't like. What are we gonna do?"
It really is, and especially what's really interesting is it's not like a flat screen situation like this. It's not like a 70-inch flat screen. It's like a 70-inch before they knew what flat screen was.
It's a Mitsubishi. It's made by a car company.
That's right. It's not those. It's not the kind that look like gigantic washing machines. Like you remember those when we were kids. Like, and the screens were just like flexible plastic. They look terrible. It definitely looks significantly better than that. But it's not like it's the day before they discovered flat screens. Like these guys at Mitsubishi made this gigantic TV that's shaped like a Buick, and they're like, "This is it. This is gonna be the great TV." And then someone walked in and said, "Hey, we're making flat screens now." I was like, "Well, we do this Buick, this Buick television that I just made."
Is it a DLP?
And Dyke, I don't.
Digital laser projection. Does it have a lamp in the back? Is it like super light for how big it is?
Yes.
Is
yeah, I might have had that exact TV back in the day.
It's very deep. Like he definitely could never hang it. Yeah. But it's interesting because then what you have is a situation where, luckily, that you have a roommate now. But otherwise, it would just be a situation where there's
the one with the terrible Obama impression.
Yeah, that's him.
It's nice to hear a listener. That's nice. We definitely gonna change that ad, but I just like it so much. It's just so funny. I like the part where Dyke gives him the last line, like, just say this, and then there's a space for like a little bit, and then Dad goes, Barack Obama wouldn't say that. It's terrible. It's a terrible impression. Anchor is the shit. It's so good. He sounds more like Bill Cosby.
I want to do a little bit. Yeah. I want to do all of our ad reads. I want to get like somebody drunk and then make them do our ad reads. We think we could do Nikki Reed. We could get her drunk and do the ad reads at the very end.
Well, yeah, Nikki Reed would be very excited about doing that. But yeah, Nikki Reed would be good on her ad reads. I don't know if she's so nice though. I think she might do it.
Who's Nikki Reed?
Nikki Reed is on sorry, we're name dropping here. Sorry, she's on the Smiley Morning Show.
Oh, okay.
So she's the other host. Again, I don't want to give the impression that I know people. I don't know anybody. But my girlfriend used to work for.
You're married.
Right, my wife. That's right. He's looking at my ring and he's like, "This
guy
has a girlfriend and a
wives
wife."
don't listen to shit like this. It's fine.
He got married like a week ago. So
congratulations!
Thank you. It was COVID, so there's no reason to tell people about it. But she knows Nikki. Her and Nikki were roommates. She used to work for the Indie Star. She knows everybody. But nice. Nikki is just like the nicest person ever. And she's doing the show at some point. Dyke told me not to mention that it's next week because we could. It needs to be evergreen, is what he called it. But she's doing it.
Yeah, I said we could just be like, she's on the show.
Yeah, she's on the show.
This will be
she may have
forever,
been
right?
She may have been on the show already.
Yeah,
depending on when you're listening.
Odds are pretty high that by the time this goes live, she will have already been on the show.
You're listening. This year, we're in the past right now.
Right. So
we're in the ancient past.
That was the plan in the first. That was the plan actually, was to get people to get drunk and then do a read, and especially like at the end of an episode, get them full of food, full of alcohol, and then do a reading of Anchor. And then we just like that so much. Even though the cuts off of the end is actually, the end just trails off.
Yeah.
It's not a good cut. But I don't care. It's just so funny up until that point. It's totally worth it. So we just kept it. And honestly, every time I hear it, like I listen to the episodes when I'm driving home because we put them right out. We clearly do not know how to edit. But I listen to it, and every time I hear that I'm like, we gotta cut it. I listen the whole 2.5 minutes. It's a long ad too. I guarantee you we're losing listeners. Like, I would love to listen to the episode, but I cannot listen to this terrible Barack Obama impression for another 3 minutes.
It's one of those things where, like for me as a listener, I hear it, and like there was definitely a point where I'm like, damn guys, you need to change this because this is so bad. But then I got it, and I'm like, oh no. They love this and find this hilarious, and now I'm totally on board with it.
I'm so glad you feel that way. I would imagine most listeners don't, but I really appreciate you saying that. But yeah, that's definitely selfish because I was the same way. I was like, I gotta fast forward 3 minutes to get past this commercial, but then it grew on me, and it just now I get to the point where I wait for him to say Barack Obama wouldn't say that, and then once I hear that, I'm like, all right, skip ahead 30 seconds, and I know I'm there.
I always forget at the end, you're like, maybe we should just have the dog do it.
I know, but he keeps talking because Thad was wasted when he did that ad. He was so drunk. I don't know if he remembers doing it.
Michelle!
You want a pudding pop?
He was, yeah. And then
he still stands by the fact that he
did.
Tremendous Barack Obama.
Last week when we recorded the episode, our guest at the time was making fun of that Barack Obama person. Like, no, I've been working on it. It's great. It sounds the same. It's terrible.
I like the brief moment of inspiration he tries to throw in there. We're going to be better together.
Yeah. The irony of that is that was the same day where he told us that Kanye West was going to be the next president. It was the exact same day. He's like, so you're telling me you're not voting for Kanye West? Like, listen, man, I'm just gonna need you to do the ads and then not talk again. Like, don't tell me that Kanye stuff. And you need to stop talking about that.
So one of my favorite moments of your past episodes, just because I know him. Well, I know the both of them, but for a brief moment, Elliot was you're supposed to be a co-host,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And there, the fateful episode, I think, might have been Elliot's last. In fact,
It was R.I.P.
with
He's still alive.
with a
We just don't invite him back.
a local journalist, who she's a very
You're gonna get us killed.
no. I have nothing but respect and admiration for her. We've always gotten along famously. I don't know if she would like to have her name dropped, especially in the context of how badly she broke Elliot's ass down. But
Yeah.
but man, oh man, I saw it coming. I saw it coming before it happened, and I don't remember exactly what he said that like started the whole snowball that seemed to keep building. But the sheer discomfort of that moment as he was digging himself deeper and deeper. Dyke, do you remember what it was that he said?
I remember 100%.
Yeah.
But there was also, so off air, there was a bunch of stuff that happened.
Oh.
So they're friends. They know each other.
I would tread very lightly.
I'm good.
Okay.
They're friends, and the whole thing was supposed to be I was recording 2 podcasts. Elliot was very clear that he only had time to do one. He had to do one, and they had to get out of there. And I was like, okay. So Sarah was supposed to come on and be my co-host.
I'm gonna kill you.
Sorry, Sarah Murrell was supposed to be my co-host. No, it's fine.
They can edit. But you know the good thing is they can edit. They can take things out. We can't.
I'm just gonna say the truth here.
All right.
I don't think I'm
All
stepping out of bounds. She was supposed to come over and do the second podcast. And stacked up. So like she came over towards the end of the first podcast, and Elliot and I were pretty buzzed. We're pretty drunk. We're real loosey goosey. And before we even recorded, he had said some things off air that kind of rubbed her the wrong way, which 100% were deserved to rub her the wrong way.
Sure.
So by the time we're recording, the audience doesn't know that like one, that Elliot and I are both drunk. And the 2, she's stone sober. And it's just like one of those things where you walk into. It's one thing to get drunk with somebody. It's another thing to show up and someone's already drunk. Yeah. And you're sober. Yeah. And so like there's already the differential there. And then they already said some shit to rub you the wrong way. So it was a terrible way to start a podcast off. And then we're just being schmoes the whole time. And she's not having it, rightfully so.
Sure.
But like I realized this, and I realized like I'm just digging a hole. I'm not communicating in the way that I want to communicate. I'm like, oh, this is and like right by the end, I kind of pulled myself out of it. I was just like, but the whole episode was not good for me either. Like I didn't look great either.
Right.
And then I kind of pulled myself out.
No, you didn't.
I switched the conversation. I started talking about something else, and I kind of pulled myself out of the hole. And Elliot's just back there quiet, and it's like he could have just coasted on it. But they're like in the last like 60 seconds, he decides to like chime in with
make it better.
Yeah.
And he's so drunk. And it's just like this mumbling like, and let me tack something else onto this. And it was like we were talking about race issues or something. It was just like he could have stuck the landing by just being quiet. And in the last like 60 seconds, he said something. And you can't tell. I mean, you can tell this is a podcast because I think it just gets quiet. And then he just literally gets up, takes his headphones off, and walks out of the studio.
God damn it, I wish you had video.
It's amazing. If you listen to it not knowing, it doesn't sound that bad. But if you listen to it knowing, it was just like, it was the most uncomfortable podcast I've ever been a part of.
I got a couple things to say about that. One, it definitely does sound that bad because Nick knows. That's what he said. He said it sounded so uncomfortable. He just literally said, I was watching The British Office and I wish I was anywhere else. That's what he was basically saying. And two, let me tell you this. What we learned from that episode is you can't have 2 Dyke Michaels. So the whole part about him saying like I could kill this woman, you need somebody to say, hey, dude, maybe don't say anything about killing women. But if they're both talking about like, yeah, I think we can kill women, you're right. I believe we can. You don't want to double down on that. What we learned that day is we need not only somebody to kind of offset that, but then we need an additional, which is Zach, to offset that. Like, hey guys, maybe don't say any of those things. You need a significant amount
series
of
of checks and balances.
That's absolutely right. And that's we have all these people on, not because Dyke couldn't handle it himself, but just somebody needs to say like, I wouldn't have said that. Which is a lot of it.
Like also now it's like it's a comedy podcast too. So if you tune in and you're like right now, like everything I've said in this whole thing is just jokes and being silly. So like if you tune in to like listen to us and you're like, oh, they're gonna have a real serious breakdown. Now we'll pause sometimes and we will seriously kind of address things like the whole like restaurant industry. We talked ad nauseum about kind of how that affected everyone that we know. But then it got real sad. And then it was like, man, this is a comedy podcast. We're like bumming everybody out, you know? Like,
yeah.
So it's just like, I feel like depending on what lens you look through, like if you look through like, oh, these guys are trying to be funny versus like, oh, this is a serious podcast. Like if I turned it into a podcast and somebody was like, I could murder women easily. I'd be like, what is this?
But that was a good episode though. I thought even though
it's a recurring joke that will never ever die.
Because I won't let it. That's why. But I think that's the thing is we had the COVID thing and COVID and then obviously the race war. I think we're in the same situation that a lot of people are in.
Chris was pro, which I thought was weird.
I shouldn't have been. Listen,
that's only because Zach's not
I told
here.
you I chose the wrong side. That's what I told you. I found out too late that I chose the wrong side. But it's we're doing that. So we started it. We definitely let ourselves get dark and kind of like mess with it and be upset like more than anybody. But we did all that, and then it's like, and then now I think we're at a place where like, all right, that happened. But you know what? We're gonna do what we're gonna have to do because life, no matter what it looks like down the road, it has to go on. And I think that's where we are now is like, it goes on. So we do spend some time, I think a couple episodes definitely getting probably a little too dark about, COVID is the worst. And we're a podcast that specifically focuses on the industry and comedy. Both were canceled. So we couldn't just say like, hey, let's be funny. We were like, hey, we're not going to be funny. And we're super pissed. And then we just got pissed. And I think there was some funny stuff in there, but it was more that. But I think now we're definitely coming up with like, you know what, the whole thing's ridiculous. And I think the best part about it is that the industry is still not where it is, but comedy lives because of tragedy. That's that's why it's there. So I think that's where people are starting to really come up and like, this is why this whole thing is actually really ridiculous. And I think that's where we're rolling to.
Well, and I mean, I feel like just given the medium, right, where a show like yours and even like this, we definitely, or at least, if there's an opportunity to make a joke and keep it light and entertaining and engaging in a lot of ways, we're obviously going to take advantage of that. Yeah. That's kind of, your primary thing is the entertainment. Whereas, I mean, I guess we try and take a pseudo educational approach to what we're doing just because, we have a lot of different types of conversations and everything. But even at that, there are absolutely moments where, especially dealing with artists or musicians or whomever, a lot of the reason why creators create has roots in what they're feeling about life in general.
That's absolutely right.
And the same holds true for us as kind of on-air personalities, so to speak, as weird as that feels to actually say out loud. But if that's what you're feeling, that's probably just what's going to come out, whether you want it to or not.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to be almost an oddly vacant person to be able to avoid getting there sometimes. Right. But that's also why people connect.
I agree. I don't think you want to make something that's just completely siloed from everybody else. I think you want to do something like, oh, this affects how I feel, because that's when people, I definitely, again, I would not put us, at least me, I would definitely not put me in the category of artist, but I think that's the creative side is really like the ebbs
sandwich
and
artist.
Not anymore, man. They stripped me of my title. But the ebbs and flows of like how it works, you want the ups. The ups are so much better because of the downs. And if you're listening to the whole, I think if I'm going to do a body of work, the catalog of the down and then the up, even though, sometimes the ups are bumpy, I think that's the better stuff. I think that's what you want to do. But also, it's funny you talk about the guests that you usually talk to, because I was talking to Dyke and all the guests that you usually talk to, it seems like your episodes are a lot quieter, and I felt bad coming on because I felt like we're just gonna keep screaming at them. a lot of our episodes.
You said you wanted our dynamic, and I was like, our dynamic, talking over each other, trying to get to a joke.
Yeah, that's right. It's just me counting down till it's my turn to speak, and then screaming at whatever he said. That's the dynamic, and I'm just trying really hard to like build a cadence. Like, okay, now it's my turn to talk. Just like keep it quiet.
It's fine. I think it's great. Ryan's the one who's going to hate you later when he's got to edit through all this shit. So
no, it's cool. The compressor will take care of most of that.
Nice.
It'll just sound a little squish, but that's all right.
Yeah, Ryan,
Cool
how are you? You haven't said shit this whole time.
Yeah, that's kind of my role, man.
Oh,
I'm kind of young Jamie over here, where I'm running the production. Occasionally, I'll chime in, but like it's kind of the flow that we have so far with most of our episodes. Is I kind of hang back for like the first half of it, get everything set up, and I'm definitely not like don't have like the gift of gab, so I'm not just gonna like. Just go.
What do you do outside of podcasting?
This isn't our show, right?
Oh shit! The tables just turned.
That's cool.
Tell us, Ryan.
Tell us. I'll talk about me all day. That's fine.
Wow.
I'm actually a musician.
Clearly.
Right now, I'm an unemployed musician. So,
is this your house?
Living the dream. No.
There's a drum set
Prospect
I wish.
East Studio.
Prospect East. One of my good friends, Colby Holmes, he plays in a band called Status Quo, and this is their practice room.
Oh, wow.
So
nice.
he set this place up recently and like got the walls all treated and stuff. We were basically the first people to come in here and like do anything with the space, and he opened it up to us and let us come in here and shoot the podcast. It's a lot better than shooting it in Nick's garage. I mean, I'm still not opposed to that. Like if times get tough, we might revert back to the garage. There,
lose all of our viewers on YouTube when they see the weird shit I keep in there.
Oh, dude, we're gonna have to play it up. Like we're gonna have to put all the clowns in the background and get some really dingy lighting and maybe some fog machines or something.
I'm into that.
What was your guys' worst episode or like weirdest?
Well, this is our 18th one. So
You're like, it might be this one.
Is this really 18?
Yep.
Jesus
18. Yeah.
Christ.
We don't number ours. We have no idea what number we're on.
I know. Every week I have to look it up. It'd be like before you post, you have to know.
Do you still count the ones with the guy that wasn't me?
No, I
That's
told
nice.
you they all got chopped off. So the brunch giving one is Thanksgiving episode was number one now.
Yeah.
Who's the guest? Who's the guest on Brunch Giving?
It was Beth because she was the young lady with the foot cast.
Oh yeah, she was the lady that you said you could kill.
I did say I could kill her.
You said you understand why she's afraid because you could kill her. That's what you said to her, and then you gave her more turkey.
I believe
It wasn't awkward at all.
For the listeners at home, I believe exactly what I said was the men aren't scared of women because of the power dynamic. And I said that, I was just like, guys aren't scared of a woman, like physically attacking them, but like women have to live in the fear of us murdering them.
And then he said, right, Chris.
Right.
And then I winked at Chris. And then I winked at her.
Yeah.
And pushed the platter of turkey towards her. I feel like you could probably, with, better comedy chops than what I've got, probably make some sort of Cosby joke related to turkey.
She said that she said recently, she's like, yeah, I want to really. She works at a comedy club.
Yeah.
And so she's like, she got some jokes. And so like she's like, I want to come back on the podcast sometime.
Oh.
She was like, as long as you're not talking about killing women still.
I was gonna say like she was never on again.
What we do try to do to balance it out is we try to have a lot of smart and talented women guests, co-hosts, people to balance out because we realize it is literally a boys club,
Right, which we don't want.
It's like a 40-year-old honeycomb hideout, and so like it's absolutely easy to get four 40-year-old dudes in a room and to maybe talk on some wild shit. So like let's balance that out with some strong women and almost every time they end up being way funnier than we are.
Well, and that's the benefit of Bridget, even though she's only Chef Bridget Horan is only doing the
kills
podcast.
it.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
She's great. I mean, she came on and we give her a hard time. We give her a really hard time, but but she can take it and she's awesome and she's very, very funny. And I don't know if you guys have heard the Drunk Dial at all, but she kills it on that. But yeah, she's a fantastic guest and she's doing us a favor because I think that she's adding a lot of credibility to the group that's kind of putting it out. But we're very happy to have her. She's awesome.
Especially on the culinary side too. It's like
yeah.
Like she'll do a dish and I'm like, Chef Bridget Horan did this dish. Like I don't know how to bake shit.
Yeah.
Like I could like I went to culinary school. I do not call myself a chef. Like she's the executive chef at Brewdog. Like she's like a legit professional chef. I'm like an asshole who can cook. Like there's a difference. But she does definitely lend a credibility to everything we do.
She made that orange pie that one time with all the skins on it.
She's still mad at you for that. She's still.
I didn't know you could eat the skins. It was a weird pie because you kept having to peel the oranges, and then Andrew's like, "You can eat the skins." Like, I don't believe you, Andrew. Shout out to Brooks, hates you.
Well, like you mentioned, being an asshole who can cook. I guess now's probably a good time to get into a little bit of bio on the both of you, just to let people know a bit more about who you actually are and how you got to podcasting cops, right? Together.
We haven't yet explicitly covered like the format of their podcast. Yeah. Like we've kind of danced around it a little bit. You want to cover what their shtick is?
Sure. So
please do, because I'm not sure what it is.
I can't wait to hear what you're like. What is it?
Take it away, Nick.
My interpretation of your show is definitely a comedy-focused podcast. Focused.
It's not a test. Whatever you say is going to be right. We don't know what we're doing.
Man, this one PBR has gone straight to my head.
I think you'll fold under questioning.
You're a comedy-focused podcast with the theme of food and beverage, kind of as like a subtopic. And beyond that, I wouldn't really know how to describe it. It's a bunch. It's like a hangout. You know?
Well, don't you cook for your guests and you feed them and you booze them up a little bit?
That's right.
Yeah.
So we make a brunch, invite them into like literally my home, cook them brunch. We've had a few non-drinking guests on, but we always have.
We've had a couple non-eating guests though. You looked at me like, oh, we had people that didn't drink. I'll tell you what, the worst thing you can do on our podcast is like, hey, I had a sandwich before I came over here. One time I told Dyke that I had an egg, like a single egg before I came over, and he didn't talk to me the entire podcast. It was an awkward episode.
We had a fan come on to do an episode, and it was like last minute ask. I was short guest. And I thought this would be an experience for them because I thought they really liked the show. And I was like, oh, this will be fun. And like maybe, like you've already said a lot of things. You obviously listened to the show. I thought that would be fun for us to like engage with that. This person showed up drunk. This is at 12:30 in the afternoon. This is like they showed up drunk in the like. We get drunk every time. Like get drunk with us, but don't show up drunk to the podcast, and then they were like, oh, we already ate. We literally just went out to breakfast.
That's right. She listens to the podcast. And then that's the thing is like she already drank. I'm like, oh, whatever. So I, coming from being a bartender, I love cutting people off. It's my favorite thing ever. But I didn't say, hey, you can't have a drink. I just didn't make her one. And then Thad is Mickey. I don't know if you guys, he's a fantastic comic, but he is Dyke's roommate. He said to her, hey, how come you don't have a drink in your hand? And she said, I don't know, he didn't make me one. So then he just yells, because he is also drunk, hey, why does she have a cocktail? I just put Kool-Aid in it. Like, I didn't give her alcohol.
Only guests to ever get cut off.
Yeah, that's right. That's a bartending move. Like, I just gave her a bunch of, like, I gave her all that Italian soda.
But normally outside of that, as you guys were saying, that come over. Usually, sometimes it has a theme. I try to have some sort of loose theme. I try to make it fun. And then that helps with putting photos up on Instagram. So it's weird because it's like, we have Instagram followers that follow the food pictures that I know for a fact don't listen to the podcast. Yep.
So we have like genius. I mean, that's the
two different fan groups. Like we have like the podcast listeners, and then the people that are only there to like be like, oh, that's a nice chicken leg.
I'm just here for the food porn.
That's great.
Yeah.
But there is something disarming about like hanging out, breaking bread, having a drink or not having a drink. But then you sit down and it's just like, we end up having a lot of conversations before we even start rolling where we're like, sometimes we're like, that would have been great. Sometimes we're like, no way I'd ever want to air that. I don't want anyone to know what we just said.
Well, I wish there was a way we could air that food part, but there's a lot of stuff. Indiana's a small place, and we know a lot of people. I don't. Dyke knows a lot of people, but those people know a lot of people, and then we start talking about those people, and obviously, like once the mics turn on, then you're not doing that. But for us, the dinner part is the best. The brunch part is the best part because we're just having amazing food, and then we're just I'm usually able to kind of chat with the guests before we go on there, and that's a really good time.
And then so by the time you start recording, then it's just like you're not like old friends, but like you're at least not just like, hey, sit down and record this, and like I feel like 90% of the time you get better interviews, better information out of people.
We do lull them into a sense of security.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they're like, let me tell you what else I do on the job. I've been embezzling money for a while. I've never told anyone this.
That's a lot.
You shouldn't be telling us this. We're recording.
And then they're like, can you edit that out? Like, we do not know how to edit. We don't at all. That's why it sounds like that. We don't know what we're doing.
I think I remember that episode. And, okay, so, Dyke, you went to culinary school.
I did.
And
I was there.
Been in the industry pretty much continuously since.
My whole life.
Bartending and cooking, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been in front of the house, back of the house, off and on since I was for like the past 20 years.
Former employee, even of my current employer.
Yes, I worked at Hotel Tango. I was.
You don't know that he wants to say his employer.
That's all right. They sponsor some of the episodes.
Yeah, I just dove right into that one.
Look at that. You're so adamant. And we always have the preface of like, listen, this is a podcast because of the guy that we talked about. You have
God
to
damn it, Dyke. You trying to sabotage this show.
Christ. He won't stop till everyone's fired.
Let me tell you the things that Nick has told me about that place. Oh my goodness. No, only good things. But yeah, I was a bartender there and did a bunch of different things. Yeah, I feel like I've done every job in the service industry, I think, from back of the house, front of the house, all the way around over the years.
Yeah.
And what are you doing currently?
Currently, I'm trying to get out of the service industry desperately. I went to culinary school. I opened a food truck. I tried to parlay it into a restaurant a number of times before I realized that's probably not my calling in life. And I realized, like, I do love food. I love food. I love cooking for food. But I don't think that restaurant ownership and management is necessarily where my passion lies. I love, like, just kind of cooking for friends and family kind of thing. Sure. And that's part of the reason why Harder Brunch really kind of served that need that I wanted to do. But I've been really into stand-up comedy. I've been wanting to just kind of devote my time and energy into that. I've been doing that for the past 3 years. Started Red Flag Comedy with some of my friends. We put on independent shows in the Indianapolis area. We've been doing that for the past 3 years. Even this summer, we've been doing socially distanced outdoor shows at the Indie Hostel. So we've still been able to get like open mics and shows going, people to be able to go out and watch comedy locally if they want to. However, you got to pay the bills, right? You still got to pay the bills. So, like, I've told Kris, my goal is hopefully by next year, I'd like to be able to pay my rent with the podcast. I'm kind of shooting for the moon with that. But I do work. One of my good friends owns Gomez Barbecue downtown. When I had a food truck, he also had a food truck, and he was my favorite food truck. Yeah. And I really support that guy. I work with him during the week down at the Circle City or at the City Market. And he's trying to open a place on 10th Street next to 18th Street Brewery, hopefully in the next quarter here. So that's my kind of day job, working with him. And it's something I probably wouldn't be doing if I didn't like love that guy and like want to like help him out. But it's just like, it's fun. And it doesn't feel like I'm going into work, like I feel like I'm just like hanging out with a friend and I'm supporting something that I actually believe in. And then on the weekends, I work at your other job. And
I don't think that I'm actually employed there any longer. At least that's how it seems. I don't know.
Well, I that was the thing too, is like last year I felt like, it was like sometimes you'd be like, I worked once every 2 months, and then all of a sudden I was like on the schedule a lot. But yeah, it's a wedding venue, and I hate it. I do not like working there. but the I mean, and not because like anything about the venue. The venue's great. Whatever. I just hate love and happiness and watching people get. Like I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day. Yeah. Just watching people get the same wedding happen. It's the same drunk bridesmaid, the same sloppy best man. Like you're supposed to wear a mask when you come to order, and after 3 drinks, people like forget how to wear a mask. My favorite is people just hold the mask up in front of their face, and like I saw someone order like this. They're like talking through it, like I'd like a Bacardi and Coke. I'm like, that's not how you wear a mask, dude. What are we doing? But yeah, and then the rest of my time, I've just strictly devoted to trying to do stand-up comedy. Obviously, then COVID happened. So all that energy that was going into stand-up went into podcasting. So Heart of Brunch is our baby. It's our main focus. But then, now I have this dope podcasting studio in my house. So when we're on quarantine lockdown, I can't do anything.
Right.
So I definitely can't do comedy. So I started another podcast called The Drunk Dial, which was me and Bridger Horan calling comics up. And just kind of, at first it was kind of like checking in, like people were not doing good at the beginning. And we have a lot of episodes.
So you should definitely listen to those episodes.
Oh, we never aired because they weren't funny at all. They were just like therapy sessions. It'd be like,
you had some really good stuff.
I haven't spoken to anyone in 7 days.
Who is this? You had the comedian that's been on the Drunk Dial, and then he was actually on with you and Bridget when you were on the Heart of Brunch. I forgot the name of our podcast. The guy that opened for. Help me out.
You're killing it. You need to look on your phone for a while.
No, I don't. I need you to fill in the blanks. I don't remember anybody's name.
Brent Terhune?
Yeah, no, not Brent Terhune. He was on when I was on the comedian that opened for Nikki.
Oh, Milwaukee.
Yeah, Milwaukee is hilarious. Yeah. Never met him.
Yeah,
been on multiple episodes under our umbrella. Never met him, but he's hilarious. I think he was on the Drunk Dial. He was fantastic.
What was great about that is since we're just making phone calls, it's not Zoom or anything.
Right.
We're just making phone calls. I mean, LA is still shut down. New York is still pretty much shut down. So a lot of these comics aren't doing literally anything. So be like, hey, can I do a 15-minute phone call? You can be in your underwear.
Yep.
No video component. You just shoot the shit. We're just and they're like, yeah. So we were getting guests we didn't deserve at all. And I also called in some favors to some people that like Ryan E. Miller. He was kind of like my local comedian Jedi master that I would just call and ask questions to. And then he went on America's Got Talent. And right before COVID, he was like just on the, bullet train to superstardom. So like I didn't talk to him forever because I just felt like everyone was like, you get a little bit of fame. Everyone's trying to like pick at you and get, hey, do this. So I waited till this summer. I was just like, hey, do you want to do like a 15-minute phone call? And he was just like, yeah, I'll do that. And I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, so you've gotten some pretty high profile guests in the scheme of things on Drunk Dial, or at least higher profile than you might have expected.
Yeah.
Like who would be the most recognizable name that you've gotten?
I mean, I definitely think Ryan, it's for like the general, like people that watch America's Got Talent. I don't. I would never have watched that.
Burn, Ryan.
I mean, I would never. It's not a thing that I would watch if my friend wasn't on it,
Yeah.
But like, he's like a person now that's like spotted out in public, by Joe Q, Susie Public, or whoever. That's a weird name. It's a gender fluid name.
You spent a lot of time. Just a generic name.
Joe Q, Susie.
Still working on it. It's like the sound check all over again. It's like you told a story no one needed to know. Like you could have ended it with Ted. What did we do? I did a fake name called Ted or Jill. Or you know what's good? Like Shelly. Shelly's a man and a woman's name.
Chris.
Actually, you know what's funny? I couldn't think of one. My own name.
Megan Gailey, and like, these are people that's like they're not like household names. Not like, and then Dave Chappelle called into the hotline, and I was like, "Buddy, we got stuff to do. I can't talk to you all day." But Megan Gailey is a Hoosier native out in L.A., but like she's like she was like on the David Spade talk show. I think she sold a show to ABC. Like she's like on TV doing that. Like literally every time I turn on TV, whether it be Netflix or whatever, it's like there was a show where they were like, it was like a cooking show with weed or something. I never watched it, but Thad was watching it the other day, and then he's like, Megan Gailey's on the show. I was like, what? So it's weird because we're not famous at all, but it's weird to even be on the cusp of knowing someone who's I feel like I know people that are famous, you know? So it's like, that's even weird.
Yeah.
To be like, I have friends that are like on TV, or friends is a strong word. I have people that will talk to me for 15 minutes that have been on TV.
I think our foot in the door is that someday one of these people, we caught them on the before the upswing, and they're going to be like on a Jimmy Fallon situation, and they'll be like, one time I was on the show where this guy said he could kill me, and he gave me a sandwich. We're like, that's us. We're going to blow up. That's going to be it. That's all we can get.
I mean, sometimes it's the weirdest stuff.
Whatever. No bad press, right?
Do you think the Netflix documentary about us is going to be called Murder Brunch?
Hardest brunch.
I've been watching. I've been going down. I really like crazy documentaries, and there's a documentary show called Class Action Park. It's on HBO right now.
It's fake.
It's about this wild water park in the late 70s, early 80s in New Jersey that had like multiple deaths and multiple injuries.
Oh wow, that sounds awesome.
And it was just like, they would just pay employees to like test rides out, and they would be like losing teeth and like getting concussions and stuff like that.
Wow.
And
what is that called?
It's called Class Action Park.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then there's this show called The Vow, which is about the Nexium cult. I love cults. I don't know if you guys are into this, but this was the cult that had like Allison Mack from Smallville and like a bunch of like famous, like some of the actresses from Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars were in it, and they were branding them by their vaginas with this guy's name.
Yeah.
And then like it was like a sex cult.
Yeah, that's a really specific kink.
Yeah. That reminds me of the time I'm so glad I get to bring this up because I would have forgotten it. But one of my favorite COVID situations that we had on the podcast is that right when Tiger King came out, and I know it's almost cliche at this point, but Tiger King had just come out, and it was me and I think our guest was Zane Zadie was the guest, and we were talking about. I walked in. And Tiger King had just come out. Everybody, I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Yeah.
I would hope that at some point. Okay, that's fine. I was at some point just like, listen, I'm done. I don't want to see it. And once you pass that point of no return, like, fuck it, I'm not going to go back. But that was the show that came out, and Zane and I were watching it. Everybody's talking about it. But as soon as I walked in, Dyke's intro was, "Hey man, there's this show that's on Netflix. It's going to be big. It's the greatest thing that's on there. It's called Platforms." And that's what everybody's going to be talking about. Like, dude, no one's talking about that show. And then so Zane came in, and Zane was a guest, and he's like, "Hey, did you guys see Tiger King?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, I saw Tiger King." And then we're talking about it, and this is before, this is the weekend, and we're all like shut in, so it had yet to blow up. And then sure enough, on the podcast, we were kind of at that point sort of testing out a "what did you watch" segment, and Dyke's intro to that was like, "Did you guys see that show Platforms?" And then we completely cut him off like, "No man, everybody's watching Tiger King. What the fuck are you talking about Platforms?" Then you watch it, it's pretty good.
I backed the wrong horse on that one. For the time, for the cultural touchstone.
I feel like you were really supporting it too. Like, listen, Tiger King, everybody's gonna forget about it when they see this, I think, Korean movie that was dubbed about food, which honestly, it really fit in. What Dyke was doing is it was a movie about food, and we're on a food podcast. He was right. And I was like, no, Tiger King, that's the thing. It was great.
I mean, Tiger King's not about food, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
tigers eating people
people eating those tigers.
Eating tigers.
They gave him all that old
Walmart meat.
Those old Walmart meat. They made sandwiches, pizzas out of the old pepperonis from Walmart.
Dude, sounds like a harder brunch episode title.
Yeah, that was like the most offensive part to me, when they were like using the expired meat for the gift shop pizza, and I was like, look, I don't care if this guy is doing meth and killing tigers, but you're selling rancid meat to people.
It all came out of a trash, like a garbage truck. A garbage
Literal
truck
trash.
delivered. And the people, I feel like I remember, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I feel like the people in the gift shop are like watching the dumpster drop it off, like, "Can I get a slice of that pizza?" Like, no, man, that's the pepperoni. They're making it out of that weird mystery meat from that dumpster from Walmart.
I wish I didn't find so much enjoyment and like the excitement of the employees who got first crack at the Walmart truck.
That's right. And that's the thing. Like,
I was gonna say, you never eaten over a trash can before at work?
Now
I've definitely never eaten off of someone's plate that came back to dish, you know?
But no one's. That's the thing is like now it's just so cliched and it was just and now it's just everywhere. It's just such a thing that just was just so big in the social conversations. Everybody saw it. But yeah, Dyke was really just all about that platforms. He's like, no, this is it, man. This is gonna change people's life. You're gonna hear a lot about platforms. No, not, dude.
There was definitely like.
Did you watch that? You hadn't even seen it. Like,
no, I watched it. There was like definitely like a month. At least a month there where I did feel like, because we were in such a weird place with everything that was going on in the world, that like everything felt very important, you know? So it's just like, when we were podcasting, it was just like, this may be the last movie recommendation that anybody gets. Go watch The Platform.
That's exactly how we sold it. And now and then at the time, to Dyke, obviously, it didn't sound as crazy, but to me and to Zane, it definitely sounded as crazy as it sounds to the two of you right now. It's like, this could be the last movie ever. No, it's not, man. They're still going to make movies. No, Platform. That's the last one. That's the last movie people will see. Like, I don't think the movie about the food is the last movie they're going to make. They'll probably make a movie about COVID. They'll probably do that.
There's already COVID movies being made.
No, I know.
Jesus Christ.
Love in the Time of Corona. Did you see that?
How do they do that? Wow. How do they do that? They're all outside.
I don't know.
I saw a horror movie that I'm not going to remember the name of it, but Amy made me watch about COVID. It was pretty good. I don't know the name of it, so I shouldn't have brought it up.
Did you another Asian food show that I'm shocked wasn't bigger because of how fucking bizarre it was? But did either of you see Kantaro, the sweet tooth salaryman?
No.
Okay, so strange. It's almost like something that, say, like the Travel Channel would have made, where it's obviously intended to highlight these actual dessert shops all throughout Japan, that have like a signature dish that they make, but it's like fictionalized and scripted, and it's about this guy Kantaro who he's a salesman. A traveling salesman, and he has to go and work these territories, but he works as hard as he possibly can so that he can finish his sales trips early and visit these little dessert shops, but it's a big secret, and he is oddly ashamed of it, so he won't tell anyone about it. But there are these moments where when he finally gets to the sweet shop and he gets the dish and he just like describes it in such great and like agonizing detail, like the region where the sweet beans are harvested and why they're so special in this one particular area, and how the textures all interrelate. And then he takes his very first bite, and it's like he comes. Like it's very deliberately orgasmic.
Is this like a real documentary?
It's not a documentary.
No,
it's a series.
Okay.
Yeah. So
is it a docuseries or is this like it's
fictionalized?
Okay.
But it's highlighting actual establishments.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So it's like a very clever kind of like Travel Channel show where it's like, oh, I'm Guy Fieri and I'm going to all these places because they've got great stuff, but really it's just like it's like a sales engine, like intended to be like marketing driven, but there's an odd like BDSM sort of dynamic between him and one of his coworkers. There's like all the hyper-sexualized reactions to all of the sweets that he tries, and it's just so fucking bizarre across the board. But I immediately fell in love with it.
Is it on? What is that on?
Netflix. Yeah.
Oh man, what's it called?
Kantaro. It's Kantaro.
Okay.
Highly recommended.
I feel like this is not the time of the podcast. We're like, let me take this movie recommendation now. That sounds amazing.
It's better than Tiger King for my money.
Well, and that's the thing is like in hindsight, there was better stuff than Tiger King, but it was just that show came at the perfect time. It's like we're all stuck in our house, like we're all like we don't know what's gonna happen. I think stipend money or money had just come out. People had just gotten their So
Trump checks.
They're Trump checks.
Daddy Trump bucks.
That was the good. That's what it's referred to as like the upswing of COVID. It's like, listen, we just got that free money. We got this Tiger King to watch. Like everything was great. I think our Zane's 80, our guest, had said this is the most money he's ever made in his entire life. Like it was the upswing of the whole thing.
It wasn't the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I think the weird thing is now is like everyone's been talking about the new normal, and like we're like in it now. Like this is the new normal. Like I'm like I'm busy. Like when I was trying to book somebody for one of my podcasts, and everyone's busy, and it was like a global pandemic, and I can't get anyone on the phone for a 15-minute phone call. But I was like, oh, this is literally the new normal. It's just like, yeah, wear a mask. Well, don't try to kill anybody. I don't know, but we all got shit to do. And we're all like, I'm fucking busy now. Like, like there's not a free lick of time. You asked me to come do this, and I was like, I don't know, maybe.
You weren't doing anything. What were you doing?
Well, normally I would be podcasting.
Right.
And then I was like, well, I got to do the drunk dial and then run over here. Yeah. But then Bridget severed her finger, and so that freed up some time.
Right. She got her
finger injured again?
All the time.
I mean, she'll be fine by the time you guys hear this.
Yeah. Yeah,
she might have a couple robot digits by then.
It doesn't care. She's like, whatever. Medic.
She's half cyborg.
I'd love to get Bridget on here just because I have a lot of respect for her. I met when Brewdog, I think right before they opened, she came to Tango and actually came and hung out in my kitchen for a while. And
Nice. He does that to me all the time.
I immediately got the willies. But no, she came and hung out in the kitchen for a bit, and we had a really great conversation. I let her try some of the stuff that I had been kind of working on, and had a pretty, pretty amicable first meeting. And I would love to get the chance to speak to her again, but I think in this context, especially because we do want to highlight certain mediums of expression that don't necessarily always kind of hit the average person as being an artistic sort of endeavor. And food, cocktailing, definitely things that I personally consider to be highly artistic, especially when done at the highest levels. And she's a talented person.
Hands down. Yeah.
She's, and that's the thing too that I think pisses us off is that she's really good at podcasting, but she's like a professional chef. Yeah. And she's like specifically so baking and pastry. Yeah. Like she could just have that lane. Yeah. But then she's good at podcasting too.
Yeah.
But
it made me really angry.
We forget that sometimes, and she'll bring over because I'm like, yeah, I know you can cook. Yeah, I know you're a chef. I know you're. But then she'll bring over like a cake of some sort, and I'm just like, what the fuck is that? And like she made a cake for my birthday, and I was like, and she just gave it to me, and I was like, how much would you have charged me for that cake if I was just some guy? She was like, I don't know, like $300. And I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
Kidding me?
Yeah. I mean, she on Instagram, I don't know if you guys follow her. She's just making insane stuff, and we're just over there like making fun of her because she's wearing a bathing suit that day. Like it's just hard to connect that she's just so talented. But she is unfortunate. It does make me angry because she came on and she's just very, very fast, super funny, and she can also make mermaid cakes like nothing. It's maddening.
And she's super young too, right? Like, isn't she?
Yeah, I wouldn't say super.
She's 12. She's 12. Yeah. All those tattoos, Dyke did that. We're not supposed to have her over.
I mean, she probably should be getting married soon. You know, those eggs aren't going to last forever. That's what I'd say.
Jesus Christ, man!
Once you hit 14, it's all downhill from there.
That's why you can't double down on Dykes, right there, because you cannot. I mean,
do you think I was going to come on this podcast and say nice things about Bridget for an hour and a half?
Your eggs are
and not say one shitty thing.
God damn it! Yeah, but that sort of says things about just all women her age, which is 24, by the way.
Yeah, that's what pisses me off.
She's very young.
Yeah.
How old is she? Do you know how old is she? She's not 30. Yeah.
Cut her in half and see how many rings she has. That's what I say.
That's not even how true.
Well, it would be easy for you to do that.
Yeah, it's easy for you to kill a woman. God damn it, you keep bringing it up. Yeah, I honestly, I don't know how old she is. I think she's not 30.
Let's not talk about how old she is. I don't know.
Wait, you
I respect women, Chris. I respect them.
Right, just a couple things you said was one of the things you said was you were going to cut her in half, and then 7 eggs were rolled. I respect women. You don't even respect their eggs. You old son of a bitch. This is why we need women on the show, because otherwise, just a bunch of 40-year-old men talking about how old eggs are, and we think that they're rings on dead women. What the fuck is wrong with you?
It's like the podcasting equivalent of getting caught drunk driving and having to make a PSA.
Every time. Well, I mean,
look, I'm real sorry about the things I said. You should never drive drunk.
I mean, going all the way back to when you talked about that podcast with Elliot, and then I just love when Dyke's like, because Dyke described that, and I know we're pulling way back from early in this podcast, but Dyke described himself as like, hey, I really turned it around. No, you did not, sir. No, you did not. His version of turning around is very much like, yeah, well, your eggs are going to be gone soon. Like, that's going deeper down the hole.
Well, to his credit, though, I think that the foibles made by Elliot
were
way overshadowed
so
anything that Dyke did.
Was like, he was saying the things he was saying. I'm like, well, those are better than what's going on here. Is that what you want? You want a benchmark that's so low that you seem like you're a fan of women? Because that's what you did.
It's not an invalid approach.
Here's the thing. I don't want to break the fourth wall too much. But I definitely like the fact that podcasting has almost kind of a wrestling feel to it.
Sure.
And so when everyone's getting along a little bit too well, I'm like, oh, we need a heel. We need a heel in here. And so like originally, Bridget came on, and obviously Bridget's the shit. She's amazing.
Yeah.
She's great. But then it was just like, I don't like how everyone's just like pro Bridget.
Yeah, that is terrible.
Somebody
needs.
So she needs a heel. So I would say the shitty stuff, and then she'd be like, "What are you talking about?" But then the best thing is we have another podcast where we're co-hosts, and like I had to be like, she would come and be like, "Hey, why'd you?" And I was like, "Oh no, we're friends on this podcast. So like we're heel and babyface on the other podcast." Yeah. And she's like, "Ah," but then I realized the true magic is pitting Kris King and Bridget against each other, because Kris King is the best heel for her. So like I stopped up until today. I think I stopped. I backed away from being the heel, and I just let Kris and Bridget battle it out. Yeah, but that is spicy. That's what you want to see.
But all of our stuff at this point has been off air because they had actually the Red Flag had Miss Indiana. I don't know if she's done anything recently, but Miss Indiana was doing some of the open mics when you guys were at the hostel. So there was an incident at the Red Flag. I don't know if you want to shortly talk about that, because I don't want to say anything that you wouldn't want me to say.
No, Miss Indiana 2020, which I know a lot of people out there going, there was a Miss Indiana 2020. Right.
I definitely saw it with your confused faces. Like, no, is that like her name? Is it like her heel name, or is she? Nah.
No, they apparently did that this year. I don't know when they did it.
Yeah.
Very nice young woman reached out, said she wanted to come do the Red Flag open mic. We said, absolutely, come on, sign up. She came, she signed up. She did her time. She had some, she was like a lot of first-time comics who went up there, tried some jokes, right. Like give it the old cause try, did a pretty good job. And then there was, it's an open mic too, so it's like, it's a lot of people at different levels of comedy. Mm-hmm. And there was a gentleman who decided to go up, and like she had made a joke about being tall or something. And obviously it's like at an open mic, it's very dude heavy.
Sure.
It's very schlubby dude heavy. Yeah. And then literally Miss Indiana walks in. There was some turned heads, to say the least. Right. I would say for the most part, 99.9% of everybody was very cool and very respectful. But this guy goes up and decides to go like, he's like, oh, hey, like I'm not scared of tall women. And he's like, in fact, I'll follow you out to your car. You're giving me a boner.
Right.
And like, just, that's right. We were outside. If we were inside, the air would have been sucked out of the room, Nobody liked what he said. Everyone felt immediately uncomfortable. And it
literal
was
crickets.
Literal crickets. Right. Literal comics in the crowd being like, "What?" Like, people were just like record skip, like anything that could possibly happen. It was just like, did you just make a joke about assaulting Miss Indiana?
Worst time.
Like what? Yeah. And so, he obviously had a talking to afterwards, and was just like. I'm like, I don't know where to be. Like, I make asshole jokes about Bridget, but like, again, me and Bridget are friends. Like,
well, but the point I was going to go to is on the Miss Indiana thing is that then we had the podcast where you told that story, and then I said something. I just kept saying, you cannot rape Miss Indiana. And I was obviously very against, raping anybody, but specifically, anybody. I also did say that Miss Indiana, it wouldn't be fair if she was funny, in the same way that we say that Bridget, it's not fair if she's good on a podcast. I don't think it's fair if Miss Indiana is funny. And I don't know if she is or not. I hope she wasn't, because how dare she? How dare she come in and she gets Miss Indiana when we don't even know there's a contest? There's a pretty good chance she just said, I'm that. And then she was so tall, no one took it away from her. And then on top of that, she's going to be humorous. It made me angry. And then, so Bridget and I have had a back and forth that unfortunately we have not yet recorded, where she keeps telling me that I'm not allowed to say rape Miss Indiana. I said, listen, that is out of context. It's definitely, I'm very anti-rape. I've said it.
I'm glad.
For a while. I've said it for a while. But not just of Miss any state or U.S., but just women in general, or men, anybody.
You didn't have to say any of this. You didn't have to feel like you brought this upon yourself.
I know. But this is what I was doing was an example of you digging yourself out of a hole, and this is what it's like when you're just digging yourself deeper. But anyway, but yeah, so,
good illustration of that, Kris.
That was totally not me actually doing it to myself. But that is the back and forth where she keeps saying it. But now, because we're getting to the real world now, and she's busy. It's her just coming in, screaming at me about how I can't, say rape Miss Indiana. And I was like, I'm anti-rape. And she's like, I just made this orange cake. I gotta go. And then it's just, that's the extent of it. And I'm like, can you eat the skins on this orange pie? And then she doesn't answer. She's already out the door. She's usually wearing a bathing suit, which is bizarre.
That is an odd choice. I think it's also worth mentioning, for the record, the Forging Flame podcast does not officially share any of the viewpoints of the hosts of the Harder Brunch.
I would like to say that Harder Brunch does not share any of the viewpoints of Kris King.
No, that's not fair.
We would like to dissociate ourselves from Kris King.
I don't like it.
He is no longer on the podcast.
I don't want it. I don't want people to be afraid of their car. I'm not going to kill women.
For the absolute record, that gentleman was talked to.
Right.
And we said, hey man, I literally walked out. I was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I was like,
"Right,
what the like?" I'm not trying to squash anyone's comedy goals, but I was like, "Dude, you just say we're gonna follow a woman out to her car? That's not fucking cool." He did apologize to her. The best thing is, she came back the next week and shit all over him on stage.
Oh,
yeah.
And then she told some jokes. No, she came back and you could tell there's that thing of you could tell she just sat on it for a week damn motherfucker, and just came back and was like, this little dick motherfucker. Blah, blah. So I definitely don't want to leave that story without saying that Miss Indiana is the shit. She got her comeuppance.
Yeah.
And
no, it's great. I saw her. She posted it on her Instagram, I think, the second time. It's, all jokes aside, it's great that she did that. That's freaking great. It's awesome. And I definitely don't want to rip anybody. Again, I just want to say it. I'm not pro even following to cars. Definitely not pro any of that.
I'm very glad to hear that. I'll feel much safer walking out to my own vehicle after this.
The problem with podcasts is sometimes people just hear words and they don't hear context. So we definitely just had someone listen to the first 5 minutes of a podcast where we have a reoccurring joke where we make fun of our producer and we just called him an incel.
Yeah.
And just by that, they were like, oh, these guys are misogynistic.
Do you remember that's how we started this podcast? We started about that. We talked about that at the very beginning of this podcast.
I'm playing cleanup duty, dude. You just said rape 27 times, man. I'm just I just want to make eggs and jokes and not be associated with those terrible things you've said.
Where do we even go from here, guys?
So anyway,
Jesus
if you'd like
Christ.
to make a donation to the Women's Foundation, please. Harder Brunch is going to start off with $100 donation, I think, after this podcast.
It's the least you can do.
The very least.
The battered women's shelter. We should definitely do that. Literally talk about anything else right now. That would be great. Dreams, your pets' names.
We were doing biographies.
Yeah, and we actually didn't get to you, Kris.
Oh.
Oh, Jesus. That was his biography, unfortunately.
Other than the rape. Or lack thereof, let's be clear. You don't have a background in comedy.
No.
Nor podcasting.
No.
But
Clearly.
you did spend some time in the industry. No longer, as I understand it, right?
Yeah. Ironically, I work in HR.
Not for long.
Not a joke. Dyke and I knew each other because we both worked at a restaurant on Mass Ave. It's funny because the reason that Dyke and I think sort of became friends is that I was definitely at McDivitt's. I was the asshole that worked there, and I was not a trainer at all. I wasn't somebody that trained people, but I was a dick. And when Dyke started, he was trained, and I think at the time we had 3 days of training. And the owner of that restaurant said, "Listen, this guy, very nice guy. We don't want to like get rid of him, but maybe you train him and talk to him. Do what you do," which was to be like just brutally honest and so I did, and he did what he did
for a bonus day of training.
A bonus day, yeah. We had 3 days of training. I wasn't a trainer at the time. I was just a dude that worked there, and so I trained Dyke and. He's like, "Is this what I'm supposed to do?" I'm like, "I don't know. I've never trained before." And I told him at the end, I said, "Listen, dude, you're the worst server I've ever seen in my entire life." And he was. But I didn't just like say that. I said, but also I was a terrible server. Prior to moving to Indianapolis, I was a bartender in Chicago. And I'd waited tables for like a hot second. I'd mostly been bartending. And that's not a brag. I think that bartending in some levels is easier than serving. So I said, "Listen, I came in and I wasn't great either, but what you have to do is just work super hard all the time. Just like every time that, anybody's looking at you, just be doing stuff." And that's what you did. Also, he did really funny stuff when he was waiting tables. It was when Dyke and I were waiting tables. There was the time it was a Scottish restaurant and we have neeps, which are essentially mashed potatoes, but they're made of rutabagas. And we had a patron that said, "Hey, can I get these neeps to go?" And they said, "I want a biodegradable container." And we're a Scottish restaurant at the time before everything was styrofoam. So Dyke didn't know what to do. And I think he put it in a napkin. He put a whole handful and I think he did use it as a handful of mashed neeps in a napkin. And we're going to give that to someone until another server stopped him and said, "No, you can't give a person a bag of neeps, sir. You just give them a bag of mashed rutabagas." And so they got stopped. But there was stuff like that. But then, what's really funny, I love telling this story, is that when we worked there, Dyke was relatively new, and there was a mutual friend of ours that worked there too, and she said, I know Dyke, I know him from camp, because you know a lot of people from camp.
Oh God, I was waiting when this was
really
going to get brought up.
Surprising you haven't brought it up yet. But she said, "Dyke is hilarious," and I said, "No, he is not. he is not funny at all." And we went to the ranch, which is one of the things we do. So the restaurant we work at, they do like this kind of holiday getaway where it's just all of us, and they just load us up on all the booze in the world, and it's all free. And then we just get 3 days of like being super drunk. And Dyke was the funniest person I've ever met in my entire life, and I just sat by him the entire time, and that's where it kind of started. He also, like for instance, as an example of him being funny, I think that was when you dressed as Homer Simpson. Was that was the first one? Yeah. And you dressed as Homer Simpson.
No, it was Bill Cosby, actually. This was pre-scandal Bill Cosby.
Yeah, I didn't know the difference, actually. But I was kidding. But he was Homer Simpson, but the Homer Simpson was good because the yellow paint kept dripping off your face because you were so sweaty. He looked like a melting Homer Simpson. And I thought like, "Oh man, that's super cool that you're sweating through it." And I thought that was the joke. It wasn't. The joke.
It's a big issue at the old nuclear power plant.
Yeah.
Also, Kris refused to believe that I was black when I first started working.
I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't going to tell him that. Well, I did.
They were like, "Yeah, there's a new black guy." And he was like, "Who?" I'm like, "Dyke." And they go, "He's not black." What the fuck are you talking about?
Wow, this is not working out for me at all.
It's all right. I'll take some of the heat off you, Kris. I actually made the absolute blunder of asking Dyke a question once that really just highlighted my own like asshole-ish ignorance. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
I asked you once what was more acceptable or proper, black versus African American, and I felt like such a giant asshole after the fact because I think your response was something along the lines of like, "If you have to ask."
Oh. Yeah. The answer should have been, "I'm Samoan, asshole. Why would you even ask me that?" That's the answer.
Filipino dick. No, like I think I was just trying to be funny. Honestly, I think in that conversation, and everyone will probably have a different opinion, but I honestly, like, all jokes aside, I do not personally like African American.
Oh.
Because there is no white version of that. Like, you don't go like, "Well, I'm Irish American. I'm, You know, like you might like you say Caucasian, but like nobody in this room would refer to themselves as European American. You know, so it like seems like an extra step to go like, well, why do I have to be? And also, why would African be before my American status?
Right.
So like to me, African American is a word that white people say when they're trying to be on their best behavior.
Right.
Where it's just like, if you say black confidently, you're good.
Right.
But like, it's also like when people used to ask me, like, when I worked at Hotel Tango, people would be like, is it all right if I, like, I had a lot of people do two things. I had a lot of white people, they say brother a lot, you know, I never had a problem with it. But I had someone ask me one time and they're like, hey, is it cool for like me as a white guy to say brother, like to a black guy? And I'm like, absolutely. It's 100% fine. But you can never waver when you say it. Like you have to say it with the confidence of Hulk Hogan. And then, but like the second you fucking waver a minute, then it just like seems a little racist. Right. Like, hey, thanks, brother. You know, like, what? But a lot of times African American sounds like you're trying to sidestep the N-word, you know? Sure. It's just like, he was an African American, if you know what I'm saying. But I think you're always safe to be like, yeah, he's a black guy. Like I think it's fine unless you say it weird. Sure. Like if you say it like you're not sure, you know, African American's fine if that's what you feel comfortable with. But like for me, I'm just always like, why I gotta be the African American? I never seen Wakanda. This is bullshit. And I'm mixed. I'm half, so I'm more like Wakanda anyway.
Listen,
you know?
Three white guys sitting here. You don't have to say that. No. My grandmother used to whisper black shoes. She didn't say any of it with confidence. She would say black shoes. I think she was racist. That actually got a lot more silence than I was hoping for. I was hoping to jump onto your say it with confidence, but then everybody's silent. Like, wow, I keep going to that rape rabbit hole. I wish I'd stop talking.
You keep
is
going
that a
back
place?
to the well.
I really. This is the thing is.
It's like, the name of the bar he wants to open. I'm like, this is a terrible idea, man. Nobody
I'm just
wants
saying
to
when
drink
she would
there.
say like, "Hey, are you wearing the black shoes?" Like there was no reason for her to whisper that. I shouldn't have doubled down.
We're not an edgelord podcast.
No.
I assure you. Normally. We're just making
we're
egg
not.
puns.
No, it's really not an edgy podcast. I clearly don't know. We're in a different setting, and I don't know what to do.
No, I'm sorry. We're also fine. Like you. I feel like
We're
you brought up the
here.
worst of. So like we're like, yeah. What other terrible things have we done? I went to bed till I was in 6th grade. You want to hear about that? That's truth.
Well, what I legitimately do want to know, like to take it back to our standard format, you both come
gross.
in a really shocking quantity. No, no, you both have some roots in food and bev, and like I said, I personally view those as being heavily artistic realms to operate within. And Dyke, I know that you've been involved in some form or another with comedy for quite some time. But do you feel like the other stuff, the food into things for you, do you feel like that has in any way influenced your ability to create as a stand-up and also as a podcast personality? Like, do you see any parallels or linkages to those other semi-creative pursuits in what you're doing now?
Sorry, I'm so gassy. All these grenades.
You know, when you point it the other way, you don't have to bring it up. I don't know.
I'm like, I can't breathe.
You were breathing really heavy after that first thing, and maybe it's like, this is what I do about my art.
This is hard at brunch, but imagine we just ate an entire pig. You know, like that's how like.
It's different. Harder brunch. Our pants are still buttoned. Like we're not just like leaning back.
So like I feel like I've realized this later in life. This
is why our podcast is an hour. That's what this is. Because I shoot myself in the foot and then Dyke says lice. That's why.
No, I think later in life I've come to the realization that I am an artist. I do have these artistic endeavors. But I don't do a lot of things that I can't draw, I can't paint, I don't play instruments. So there's a lot of like classic artist things I can't do, but then I've done all these other things my whole life where like I was in a hip hop group and like I was like a rapper, but I was also the guy that wanted to do like all the theatrics and stuff like that. Comedy, I think, is very artistic and like writing jokes and like performance art and doing all that stuff. Cooking is very artistic for me, and like, I mean, obviously, like you can go, crazy with like plating and stuff, but I think sometimes in just like even like recipe design and like curating things, from certain regions and whatever, or just like putting something together that like, hey, I think you would enjoy this meal. And I'm going to cook X, Y, and Z because I think you would personally like it. So yeah, I definitely think all of those things influence me and kind of affect one another. I don't know if there's a direct correlation between like me cooking an egg and telling a joke, but like that's what I've realized is my like, and like I'm also a person that's like I get messed up if I don't have those outlets.
Sure.
So like my adult life, I've done sketch comedy. I did like a comedy hip hop. I always kind of had like some sort of outlet to do these things, and then I got into the culinary world like even deeper with culinary school. But I've always had some sort of outlet for me, and now I would even throw like podcasting in there. It seems weird, but it's just like, for as wacky as everything we've said on here is tonight, like it's all, we're just trying to be entertaining. We're just trying to,
Right.
And I think there's an art to it, and sometimes you hit the mark and sometimes you don't.
Yeah, but how you roll with it when you miss is really what it's all about. But and I do personally see a parallel between the comedy and the cooking and potentially even the podcasting, in that from where I stand, right, when you are cooking for people, in a way, despite how pissed off it might make you when you're missing a holiday with your family or working every goddamned weekend of your life.
Yeah.
You're sacrificing a lot of yourself to feed people. And that in and of itself is a very selfless act. And it's a very loving and giving act. And the same thing with comedy. My interpretation of that is you don't necessarily get into comedy unless, you're probably kind of a fucked up person, right? But if you're a fucked up person, odds are really good that you seek to, in most of the rest of your life, help other people not feel bad because of what you yourself have experienced. So I see a lot of parallels in trying to make people feel better about life between A, feeding them, and B, making them laugh.
Well, and I guess that's where everything comes together with Harder Brunch, is that like, I cook the food. I typically take all week to kind of like plan out some sort of theme that I think is going to be fun for the guests for some reason, or I think it's going to be topical, or what have you. And then, for everything from going and buying the ingredients to like cooking the food.
To figuring out how you're going to repurpose poutine again.
Yeah.
That was for you, Kris.
Thank God. Thank God someone else said it.
We'll never make it again. But then also it's like, it's like Harder Brunch could easily be a cooking podcast and a straight interview.
Sure.
We could have people come on, service industry folks, and we could just be like, and tell us about your other job. Where'd you work before? Right. Oh, that's real interesting, right? Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
We've done episodes like that though.
Yeah, but we don't enjoy it.
We don't.
But mixing everything, mixing the cooking element, mixing the podcast interview element, and then trying to make it funny. Like to me that is mixing the three art forms that I really enjoy. And again, I think it's a delicate dance. And also it's just like, it's not just me. It's me, it's Chris, it's Zach, it's our guest, it's our regulars, it's our because everyone that's a part of the podcast too is just like, Chris was a guest who was like, hey, I want to come back. I really enjoy this. I like what you're doing. Our producer Zach, same thing. Right. It was like, this is fun. Like it really has become like the honeycomb hideout of people that are just like, hey, we have plenty of people that come through and like, that was great, and then we'll never see them again. And then we have people like, you guys are doing something special here. Like, I'm not, not sure what it is.
I think there's a lot of people though. I'm always surprised that people are like, hey, whenever you want me back, I will definitely come back. And then I have to say, shut up, that's what I said. Get the fuck out. But yeah, a lot of people do just have there's so much. I mean, we just, I think when you talk about defining what we do, it is very hard to define what we do because the definitive what we do is just have a really good time. Like we're sitting around, we're making food, we're making drinks, and we're doing, I don't work in the service industry anymore. I think HR is customer service, but that is where my heart always is. And it's exactly what you said about like, you're making things for people and helping people have that good time. And that just doesn't go away. And I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it is just us having a good time with whoever it is. I mean, I am lucky enough that Dyke said I could keep coming back. But really, my entire thing is literally showing up, making some whatever cocktail, and then eating the best food ever, and then hanging out with people that I've never met, which is just like, that's amazing. That's amazing. Especially for somebody who hates people. But that's they're great, and they're always such a good time. They're always happy to be there, and that's really what the podcast is just about. Let's continue that good time, and it's always fun, and we're always so very goddamn full. So much.
I'm envious, and to be perfectly honest, anytime I ever interact with anyone who's kind of close to center, most notably Max Boots and Zach Rohn, I'm like, what the fuck, guys? Why? Because Max, I saw him like last week or the week before. He's like, oh, why haven't you been on the show? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm wondering the same goddamn thing.
Wow, that's all this was a trap. Like,
that's right. Welcome.
Welcome to the trap. Like, get me on the goddamn show. I want a goddamn sandwich.
Really, it's all about the food. Yeah, I see that Instagram and I'm like, feed me, Dyke, feed me. No, so cocktails though. Cocktailing is kind of the world that I live and breathe in for the most part right now, running back a house for Tango.
Yeah.
I work on kind of more of a foundational level rather than exclusively the end product being a finished cocktail. While I definitely create some cocktail recipes, my focus is primarily on crafting ingredients that can bring a lot of nuance to the bottled product, which is ultimately the end result, is like trying to get people to buy bottles of booze.
Yeah.
What is, I guess, okay, so we'll start here. What's your favorite cocktail to make?
Oh man, that's a fantastic question. Honestly, anything, what's funny is anything with beets. Honestly, anything with beets. I'm a big fan, and I think you can do a lot of stuff when you infuse stuff with like standard beets and then throw beets in there. But honestly, pickled beets, like a really good pickled beets, if you use that as a mixer versus an infusion, you can do so much. It's just an easy cheat to make something that tastes complex that isn't. It's just like, oh, wow, this is really earthy. Why? 'Cause I put beets in it. And people just aren't expecting it. And then you just throw it off. You just offset it. I mean, you don't even have to do like a Campari, but you can.
Sure.
And then you offset it with just a little bit of sweetness and then like a gin in there. And it just makes you... I like it because it makes you look more professional than I am. I'm sure you're but it definitely always elevates it. So I try to just... I do like a count, like, all right, well, we can't put beets in every cocktail. So I'll put beets in this one, then I'll go like weeks ahead. But yeah, I would say something with, I would do like an Aperol, like gin, beets, and then something with like a honey simple. And honestly, anything around those lines would be good. And then
sounds like a hit.
Yeah, and then I always like to drop anything along the lines of like the leaves you can pick up at like a Meyer, like a basil or something like that. Just trying to mix that in and just kind of give it that kind of crispness to it. But yeah, beets or anything with beets just always work out. But I'm a one-trick pony. I mean, honestly, outside of that, I think I'm on the same thing of like, grapefruit's really good. I think Campari Aperol they're also cheats. I mean, you can do a lot of those with like, a half ounce or 1 ounce. You can do a lot. It makes things look kind of more complicated than they are. But yeah.
Full disclosure, he's on retainer from Shroot Farms, so...
That's right. This is the offset. This is the offshoot. Is like, just go out there and put those beets in those cocktails. I feel like it's like that Portlandia where they're like, the celery guy, why can't you do it? And like, I'm the guy moving the beets. I'm killing it. The beets are killing it. But yeah, no, it's really good. Have you made anything with beets?
I have actually. So we last winter I was playing around with beets and I was doing a lot of experimentation. Like if I'm trying to work with a specific ingredient or a specific flavor and I'm starting from scratch, I tend to try and acquire every possible version of that thing.
Okay.
So when I was playing with beets at the end of last year, I was of course getting traditional red beets, got some golden beets. But then I got some candy stripe beets. Have you played with candy stripe beets
No.
before?
Sounds amazing.
First of all, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
You cut a candy stripe beet open, and it's almost like fucking tie-dyed. It's like white and pink and gorgeous on the inside. So it does make a great garnish.
Yeah.
But I juiced a bunch of them and made a simple off of that.
Nice.
And the flavor differences between like a straight up red beet, there wasn't much difference between a golden beet and a red beet in terms of like a simple syrup.
Nice.
But you get a fair amount of the earthiness that you would get with a standard beet. But then there's this background flavor that kind of lilts along, and it tastes a lot like cotton candy. So yeah, different varieties of beets are fun to play with. So yeah, I'm into beets across the board, though.
What are you doing on the simple? What are you using as the sugar? I don't want to turn this into a cocktail podcast, but I could honestly talk about beets for hours. But what are you, when you're making the simple, because I know a lot of people have done that too, what are you using as the sugar? What are your 50-50?
Generally speaking, I just use straight up white sugar. But it depends. I mean, if there's some sort of, if there's an interesting background flavor that I'm trying to bring out and something with a little more caramelization might play better, then I'll switch to like a Demerara or even I'm working right now. I don't want to give away too many secrets, but I'm working on for the upcoming fall and winter, just because we've had to compress seasons at this point. It doesn't make a lot of sense to invest a ton of extra capital into like developing a new menu every season when we're like stuck at a limited capacity. And who the fuck knows how sales are going to go? But I'm working on a rich simple to make a kind of like a Latin themed old fashioned. And I used to own a small snack food business. Dyke's aware of it, but I made pork cracklins, chicharrones.
Nice.
They were called Hinton's Pig Chips, and they were truly one of a kind.
Yeah.
But I had developed a seasoning blend for a candy glazed pork cracklin.
Okay.
And so I based it off of that, but essentially it's a brown sugar based rich simple with a boatload of cumin and of course a little bit of spicy chili.
God. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, the way that the cumin and the brown sugar flavors like interplay it's sexual. It's so fucking good.
Sounds amazing. I feel like what you're doing is you're making experiments and then they're all turning out really well. I do experiments like trying to make a shrub out of a beet. You can't do that.
Yeah, beet shrub sounds like it'll turn an ugly color real quick.
You can. Well, I thought like you can't. There's no sugars in like a standard beet, right? So there's nothing to pull out when you put the sugar on there. But I thought, well, like maybe a pickled beet, there'd be some sugars in there. There isn't. The short answer is there is not. And I just made a mess that Amy was super pissed off because beets are super purple and that doesn't come out.
Sure.
I guess because it's still there.
It's a pretty intense stain.
Yeah. It was a really intense stain. It's a circle I'll never live down. But no, that sounds amazing. But yeah, I also I mean shrubs are a big deal. I was doing shrubs and everything. I was trying every fruit that we get to make shrubs out of that. They're easy-esque, I guess, but I think you really have to know what you're doing for them to be easy because that is science. I mean, there's definitely a mix there on where everything has to be and how long you put the sugar in there and all that. I think I underestimated how complex beets were because I was just putting sugar in a Tupperware bowl with like some blueberries and then leaving it for a couple of days and then
just macerate them.
Just giving it to Dyke and saying this is a drink, and it probably wasn't. He doesn't know. He knows his eggs, but he doesn't know what a cocktail is. No, he will tell you every time.
Son of a gun.
That he is a professional bartender. He won't stop telling us that. He brings it up all the time.
It makes one hell of a Jack and Coke.
Yeah, they're usually topped off with hams. Usually.
So him and Jake will be on there, and they'll start running their mouths.
Jake Johnson.
Yeah, and then they'll be like, "Oh, blah blah bartender." And I'm like,
"Yeah, that's the bartender lingo. That's how you know he's a professional bartender."
I literally am a bartender right now. Like that's how I make a living as a bartender. So one of the fun things is like I always cook, and then Kris King is always making the cocktails. But like for the next one that we're doing. He's going to cook all the food in his own house. Yeah. And I'm going to make the cocktails. I'm really excited. As soon as you know the menu, let me know.
I know the menu. I told you the menu. I already told you last week.
Okay, that's locked in?
Yeah, it's locked in. I got it. Right. And I haven't bought the stuff yet. I'm going to do it the Dyke Michaels way. I'm going to buy it the Friday before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's on the menu?
So we listen. I also live right down the street, so if you happen to like wander in, that's totally cool.
Okay.
But I am so the theme that I decided. I feel like it's really narcissistic, but I'm not a chef at all, so I just had to pick something. But I worked at a lot of different restaurants in my time. So I worked at Bennigan's, I worked at Wolfgang Puck's, I worked at Marcello, or this Italian place in Chicago, I worked at McNiven's. So I decided to pick like a signature item from all those places, and that's what it is. So Bennigan's was the Monte Cristo, which I don't know if you guys ever went to Bennigan's. They don't exist anymore, I don't think, but
at least once in my life.
Yeah, that place is disgusting. But the Monte Cristo is a deep fried club sandwich, and I think you can typically do it with French toast. They did not. So it sounds actually pretty high end, where it's a deep fried club sandwich, but then they like put like a raspberry sauce on there and like some powdered sugar. So a single one of those, like, oh, that's nice. What happened at McNiven's is people would order that and then order like a bucket of honey mustard. So that's what I'm gonna do. So with that, and then Wolfgang Puck's, the biggest thing was the smoked salmon pizza, which is a cold dish. So it's regular pizza crust, dill cream sauce, and then a smoked salmon on top of it. It is one of the most amazing things I've ever had. I mean, I could eat smoked salmon by the handful, which is how Dyke serves the food typically. But so there's that. And then I think I'm still working on some of the other things. I would love for McDivitt's, I would love to do Scotch eggs, but Dyke makes those, almost as much as he makes poutine. So I have to think something else. I might just buy like a can of haggis from Stu and see what happens.
Just make some neeps, motherfucker.
You can
as long as we're serving things by the handful.
Put them in a napkin. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you listened to that episode where he literally did serve, what was that, like a cabbage salad that you did there? It's like cabbage and radishes that you served up.
Shaved celery.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing is like, he looks at me like, no, it was actually this really high-end thing. You put it in a dish with your gloved mitts. Like there was no spoon involved. He took it and plopped on the plate and thought that the guest and I wouldn't have noticed. He thought, like, I'm just going to go in and out. There's no way that they'll notice a man that looks like me dropping in and out with a handful of celery
for the
salad.
guests, we always like take like a nice photo for Instagram, and then we usually serve the best presentation for the guest of the week.
Yeah.
But then for all these other derelicts, yeah, like they can eat out of a trough for all I care. So I just came and I just threw the rest of it like the salad,
literally.
But nobody was really digging into the salad, so I was like, oh, I got some more on this. There's a limited number of plates. It's a house. It's not a real restaurant. Spoiler alert. And so I just threw half of a salad with a gloved hand on top of the other salad.
That's right. All those things are true. But the other thing he doesn't tell you is that salad, the initial salad had come out, I don't know, 40 minutes before. As far as I know, he was walking around with his fist, and he forgot about it. He was just like, oh, God, I've had this salad in my hand for 20 minutes. I can't throw it away. I'll give it to them because the top was warm.
How long is this podcast going on? My bladder's about to explode.
If you need to take a break, we're actually about an hour and 45 in, but so we can wrap it up if y'all need to go, or you're free to dip out.
We can just pause and he could pee. I mean, you can.
You can just talk. I'll just go.
Yeah.
Oh, why did you do what you do as a podcast? Just leave and then not tell us that you were we could talk about something else.
He's on
That's
camera.
What I'm used to.
There's no escape.
You opened up the handful of salad thing, and like now it's my turn to talk.
Yeah, so the bathroom's at the far end of the room on the right. If you run into anybody in there, they live here. So be nice.
Yep.
Feel free to introduce yourself. Oh, do you have
space to get around
we got
there?
room?
Oh, you want to get up?
This is. We're gonna need to throw up the please stand by icon again.
Nah, this is
on video too, right? Like this.
Yep. Oh yeah.
No, I know. You're ruining everything.
That's okay. That's just the magic of podcasting.
I like
it's real.
You guys have the nice Sunday school chairs.
That's right.
You got these. They're comfortable.
We stole these from the teacher's lounge.
Yeah, that's obvious. It's amazing. I mean, they're really durable.
Oh yeah, and quite comfortable.
Yeah, all jokes aside, they are really comfortable.
Yeah, and at least two of them stack. Wait, where's the restroom? At the far end of the room, right in the kitchen on the right.
You've been gone for 45 minutes and you still haven't pee.
I think that camera might have moved.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I know that he definitely did. I don't know.
I'll check it.
It's quite all right. No big deal. We'll make do. We'll keep it going. Let's keep these hits a rolling.
Oh yeah.
So if you had to define it, and I realize it was a Dyke show, you kind of came into it after it had already been rolling.
Yeah.
But do you personally have a why for podcasting in general? Is it just something that you started doing to pass the time because there wasn't quite as much to do as there used to be?
Well, when we started, it was definitely pre-COVID.
Sure.
But I think my why is definitely because I work for a large pharmaceutical company that is not Lilly. I know that's bizarre in Indiana, but I work in HR, and it's great. Love my job. It's awesome.
Sure.
But to have, for a long time, probably too long, I was still working at the restaurant that Dyke and I met at. I would definitely go back there on, Saturdays and Sundays, and what I realized is that I am too old to be working on a Saturday till 3 o'clock in the morning. So the snapshot that I get of that experience is the podcast. So it's all the stuff. It's serving. It's hanging out with my friends. Nobody's making friends in an office, by the way.
Right.
They're not there's not people that are hanging out with hey, what are you doing later? Do you want to play golf? No, I don't. Diane, stop asking me. It's the one thing that I've always had. The problem I've had working in an office, and I do love my job, is that. And you guys, when you come to the service industry, I think there were maybe just different people.
Sure.
Than people that have kind of gone and, worked there for a little bit or didn't work there at all. They went from high school, college, job, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that conversations are different. So, yeah, the wow for me is I get to do that. I get to hang out with people. We still get the service part of it. And then we kind of just get to talk. I mean, it's the best of that world. And I get to do it just on a Sunday. So I think that's probably a very long answer to a really easy question.
But I mean, it sounds to me like it's bringing you a bit of catharsis. It's almost like a bit of ventilation for you to blow off some of the office steam, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I blow up the steam, because there's definitely never a time let me talk about this bitch, because this is the thing in HR. It's the same thing with serving. It's still a customer service situation, but it's not a nostalgic situation. It's not I can remember when I used to do this. It's basically at some point there's an end point, but this is that kind of icing on the cake that I can't believe that, let me work around you, sir. Let me just if you just hug me for 10 minutes, you'll get right through. Yeah, it's totally.
Oh, no. It's okay. That's a cheap camera.
Camera didn't
And
get.
I think the angle's still good.
If that's the one to take a tumble, that's the one.
Yeah.
Just not this one, because my black belt coach owns that one.
He will whoop that ass.
What's funny is you introduced 7 stories just in that very short comment.
Oh yeah,
the black belt coaches, but yeah, it's not nostalgia. It's not. It's definitely this icing to the cake. Somehow I get an extension of that, and honestly, that's what it's always been. Is that I was 30 when I moved to Indianapolis, and prior to that, I was riding a bike. I was a bike messenger and a bartender. And then I came here and went to school, and I got to be a bartender and then meet, obviously, a bunch of really great people. And now, I don't serve anymore. I don't do that. But still in some adjacent way, wrapped up in the service industry. It's just I don't know when I have to give it up, but I'm lucky enough that I don't have to do it now. And I'm not in a rush to say, I'm going to walk away and be an adult who just works in an office, plays golf with Diane. We talked about Diane a bunch when you were gone.
Well,
that's all you got?
How's she doing? I heard a little ditty about her one time.
Hold up.
Okay.
Let me fix that.
Yeah.
Wait,
it looks like it turned.
Whose house is this?
This is Mr. Colby Holmes' house.
Is there a dog in there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean,
there is now.
I was very nervous as I went to the bathroom. I was like, oh, there's not a wolf walking the perimeter.
No wolves so far as have been discovered.
Why would there be a wolf,
noticed.
you think? Why would that be a theory?
I have a phobia.
You have a phobia of wolves?
And stingrays.
Okay. You know what? The likelihood of a wolf being in there is just about as likely as a stingray.
Well, why stingrays? What about stingrays bother you?
When I was a little kid, I saw this National Geographic magazine about giant stingrays, and they were the size of a Volkswagen. And every time I would take swimming lessons and I would go to the deep end, the water was darker in the deep end. It was a little murkier, and I just was like, what if they're somehow, I know it's unlikely.
Yeah.
a giant stingray got in here somehow, and he's just like lurking at the deep end, waiting.
I'm still going to get a video on this so you can see him do his impression of a lurking stingray.
Waiting for me.
I think if a stingray did what you just did, I would be like, we're cool, Mr. Stingray.
Well, and then like my whole life, like I thought, and I was like, that's so stupid. You're so stupid. Like stingrays never hurt anybody. Yeah. And then the crocodile hunter got killed by a stingray.
I knew you were gonna do it. And you were like, that was the thing that like
cemented everything. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, but he was actively seeking stingrays. You haven't actively sought dogs or stingrays.
Well, I don't.
Wolves or stingrays.
I don't go into the ocean. I don't fuck with the ocean.
Right,
I'll go knee deep. I won't go any further.
Into the ocean.
No, because like
the Buick-sized stingrays.
Think about it. Like people like
I'm thinking about it.
Then like scuba dive or whatever. You're sitting on the bottom of the ocean. So okay, like let's say you're like I'm scared of dogs. So like
you own a dog.
Well, he's fine, not him. He's one of the good ones, if you know what I'm saying. The rest of his mongrel race. So
Jesus
like, yeah. But no, they'll like imagine like a dog come at you on the ground, and you're like, okay, there's like 360 that like a dog could attack you from.
Yeah.
Now put yourself in the ocean, the bottom of the sea.
I've done that.
They can come at you from literally any angle.
Yeah.
And it's not just stingrays, duh. It's sharks, it's barracudas, it's piranhas, it's squids, it's electric eels, it's box jellyfish.
Yeah.
Like everything is a prehistoric monster in the ocean that's trying to kill you.
Wow. First of all, there's no way you're going that deep.
I will, to Dyke's credit. So I lived in as a youngster. I lived in Florida for like 5 years, and spent a good amount of time on the beach. Went to a beach that I didn't normally go to with my family and like a church group or something.
Yeah,
and I was maybe, let's see, we'll say I was probably like 12 or 13 years old at the time, and I was like tits deep in the water. And had goggles and a snorkel and was like walking around and occasionally swimming around. And I was kind of like walking with my face in and just like looking, at like the occasional fish that would swim by. And the water was shockingly clear at the time. And then all of a sudden it wasn't. It was very, very cloudy where I was standing when it had just been crystal clear. And I was trying to figure out what had happened, felt something brush by my leg, and it was dozens of stingrays. Not super large. I mean, each one probably like 12 inches across, right? Yeah. But there were a lot of them, and it was beautiful and terrifying. But this was before Steve Irwin passed away, so
you're not
didn't have that same sort of fear.
So Nick, you're not a psychiatrist, clearly.
No.
Because it seems like you learned nothing from his fear of his unrelated. I don't know if you listened to what he said, but he thought there was a wolf in the house. That was unrealistic. And what you basically said was, actually, I walked into a house and sure enough, I was covered in wolves. That's what you did. I was like, hey man, that's actually a pretty ridiculous fear. And Steve Irwin died like many years ago, and I don't know that there's a lot of cases of that. And then Nick was like, no, you're right.
I know you're supposed to shuffle your feet so you don't rile them
Those
up.
are jellyfish, dipshit.
And stingrays.
No.
Yeah, 100%. 100%
Are jellyfish?
stingrays.
No, I guess you could be right. You could be right.
Yeah, well, if we had TV, we could Google it. We could get it right up there.
Yeah, you're right. You know what, though? The best thing about
Bring
our
it up, young
podcast,
Jamie.
We have a person that could do that, and he refuses.
Yeah,
he doesn't look anything up.
Must be all of his white
It's
pride.
just so many times you're like, Zach, can you look that up? And then he looks at his phone and he's like, yeah, I don't have any information. Apparently Google for Zach doesn't have anything in there. He's like,
where would I find that?
Yeah, that's right. That's what he does on air. And again, we don't have what you guys did was Dyke went to the bathroom, and we probably edit that. We can't edit what Zach does. We know because Zach's the editor. And he says stuff like, I don't know where to find that. Well, we had that story about the heist. And then you had the only information that Zach gave us from what sounded like a pretty crazy heist was that $550,000 was over $500,000.
Yes.
That's the information he gave us, which, anybody that knew, grade school math knew what he gave us. And he's like, that's all the internet said. Why don't we fire him? Because he makes that really good mustard.
He's a good egg.
Yeah, that's right.
He is the sauce boss of Indianapolis.
That's right. He does have that.
Well, guys, a 2-hour podcast. What? How do you guys normally end these podcasts? Like, what's normal?
You don't have to do that. It's not our job to worry about how to close out the podcast.
No, like
we don't work here.
Like I'm curious. Like, what's the normal gambit of like?
If you'd have waited 5 minutes, they would have told us.
Where are they from? What are they doing?
He just drinks a bottle of antifreeze, and then we get to
What are your fears? What keeps you up at night? Stingrays, dogs, wolves.
I think we've covered all of those. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely about a good time to get it all wrapped up. So typically in this scenario, we would look for an appropriate hole to kind of jump into and cascade down that runway, so to speak. Now's as good a time as any, I guess, to mention to you, dear listener and viewer, where your content might be found, what things you might like to promote, and so on and so forth. So, Harder Brunch, how can people find it?
Yeah, definitely. We are at Harder Brunch on all social media. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever fine podcast, Anchor, wherever fine podcasts are sold.
I like they had a stroke and Anchor came out. We're not on Facebook though, right?
Anchor, we are kind of on Facebook.
No, we're not.
We're working on it.
We don't want to be on Facebook. Only old people use Facebook.
Yeah.
Specifically if they're going to complain about a podcast. That's what old people do.
Why did he say rape 27 times? That doesn't sound like a comedy I want to watch.
No, the most of the Facebook audience isn't going to mind about that. It's all that it's all that damn uncomfortable black talk.
Well, we do support All Lives Matter. I mean, I think we've all gone on record as saying
Jesus
that.
Christ, man. This is
Mainly
luckily
Kris
they have
King.
video because otherwise an audio like, listen, I know that you look Samoan, but you can't say all lives matter on a podcast that I'm going to be a part of. What the hell's wrong with you? Luckily they have a camera.
We made our disclaimer. It's fine.
Yeah. They're like, I think we covered our side. We're
That's right.
good.
This is still much lighter, I think, than how intense our episode with Zach got. So it's fine.
Oh.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
that went off the rails.
that one went some dark places.
What happened?
Really?
About 45 minutes of conspiracy talk.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it was good.
nice.
It was good stuff.
We went down there.
We have a conspiracy guy coming on in 2 weeks. I'm real excited.
We'll be waiting with bated breath.
Again, I don't know who the guests are at the time, so this is a surprise. It's a surprise to me as much as it is for you. I don't. Okay.
I didn't know you guys were going to be on until yesterday.
Well, I was out of town.
He's like, I
on
definitely would have
vacation,
vetoed it.
Yeah, no.
We do artists, entrepreneurs, and all these amazing things. Like, I got these guys who feed people stuff and then they make them talk. Like, that's not in the theme of things. That's why I told you late.
All right. So at Harder Brunch on all this stuff. And then the podcast available on all the platforms, sounds like. And
Yes.
Drunk Dial, where can that be found?
Same thing at Drunk Dial on everything. Available Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And then also at Red Flag Comedy is my comedy troupe. And
Gomez Barbecue. Throw
No,
old Mikey Gomez a
No,
shout
he
out.
can do his own advertising.
Fair enough.
This
All
is
right.
our time. Our time up here.
he didn't pay me shit for a plug.
We would probably also talk.
Can we edit that out? Can we edit that out? Do not go to Gomez Barbecue unless he pays me first. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, Gomez Barbecue is
Probably
wonderful.
also the Burn the Well. We have another one under our flagship of the Harder Brunch family. We're still kind of working on that name, but also Burn the Well is relatively new with Jake Johnson, who it sounds like. I mean, you know Jake because he was at Hotel Tango. Yeah.
Yeah, I've met him. I don't personally know him. I know him mostly actually from Harder Brunch. So.
Okay. Yeah. So he has a new Burn the Well podcast. He's 3 episodes in. Yeah. So yeah, we have a couple. I think our theme really is just industry talk. You know, basically what we're always looking at is like, what's it like to hang out with a bartender? What's it like to hang out with comedians when they're not doing what they're doing, or what's it like to hang out with servers when they're not doing that. I think that's the theme of everything we're doing. Maybe
I think we like to pull the curtain back a little bit. It's like
Right.
the overlap that I've noticed between service industry and comics is we all have kind of a dark sense of humor, and that like if we're clocking out, we're sitting around, we're having a shift drink, we're all gonna probably make some inappropriate jokes,
right.
and then we're gonna go, I'm just kidding. I actually believe the exact opposite of that. I just want to make sure that that's
right.
clear.
Yeah.
We support and love everybody,
Yes.
and we're just trying to be fun.
Yeah, and that's I think the through line of Drunk Dial, Harder Brunch, and then the new Burn the Well. That's the through line. Is just like, what's it like when with those people that are maybe just working to make you happy? What is it like when it's just them hanging out with each other? And that's kind of all of our stuff.
Right on. Okay, and at Dyke Michaels on Instagram,
Yes,
on Twitter.
Yep, I'm everything.
Okay, Chris.
No.
Just nothing.
No.
All right.
I have actually. I always like to take this time to promote my action figure Instagram. It's called Dr._Galactus. It's literally just the action figures. I don't do anything with it. Amy takes my action figures and she takes pictures of them. And somehow I have 1,000 followers because she works in media and I don't know what I'm doing. But
Hell yeah!
she's got some new Ninja Turtles. They'll be up soon.
All right,
Nice.
and so let's wrap it with this. For anyone who might be listening, whether they are an artist or a podcaster or someone stuck slaving away in a kitchen, is there any one large bit of advice that you could give them as a creator of things?
I would just say I think right now is the best time in human history to create whatever you want to. I think no matter what the scale or whatever you're into, it's the best time to create something because you have such free autonomy to put it out into the digital sphere. So just do it and be consistent about it and be passionate about it. And that's all the advice I can give. I think just keep doing it until it works out, till it makes sense, or till you learn how to do it better.
Well put. Kris, anything to tag on to that?
I think I would just say, like, we're at this top of this roller coaster that we have no idea what the down of that roller coaster is going to look like. We're still, and maybe we're still chugging up. And I think that's the thing is, you have this time and a lot of people are displaced or moved or whatever, and you do have a very unique opportunity that no one's allowed to kind of look at, is this what you want to do, or is this, maybe there's something else, and kind of recreate it before that roller coaster goes down that hill. And I think do that. Just really look at whatever you're doing, whatever you're not doing, and is that something you like to do? And it's, you know what, the thing is, it's, and you guys know this probably, but it's you always are going to be better doing something you really like doing. You're always going to be better doing that, and it's always going to work out. Money aside, it's always going to work out to do what you're doing. And I think we have this tiny little blip of like, well, things are kind of getting figured out, and we don't know what's going to look like on the other side of this cave we're in. But really figure out what you want to do, and then decide kind of this is your time to kind of get your shit together and do that. And that's what I'd say is to anybody that's kind of in a spot, and I know there's a lot of people in bad spots, like, take this time, think about that, and then think about what you really want to do, and then fucking do it. I think that's it.
Nice. I think just to tag off of that.
Okay. You always have to have the last word every single goddamn time. Every single goddamn time.
I think just to tag off of that, please definitely watch The Platform on Netflix. It's a very important bit of programming.
I'll add it to my queue now. Right on, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. This was a whole lot of fun, and thanks for doing what you do.
Yeah, thank you guys for having us on.
This was great.
Nice. All right, peace.